Just for technical check, can you hear me? Please comment or react if you can hear me loud and clear. Okay. With the video. Now can you see me? Again, make some reactions if I am visible to your screen. Okay, once again, we would like to encourage everyone, all the participants, to please accomplish the attendance form shared through the link in the chat box. And please settle down now because we're about to start. But before we start, allow me to read the nitty-gritty of this activity. Just a reminder for all of us, the webinar house rules are as follows. Upon entry, kindly change your name to this format for proper identification. Your agency, abbreviation, or the name of your LGU, and your full name. The example is DILG-Juan de la Cruz. Number 2, make sure to fill out the attendance sheet or form shared through the link in the chat box. No? Third one, keep your microphone muted unless you're allowed to speak. Then please hold all questions until the end of the presentation, until end of each presentation. You may use the chat box for the moderator to note it. You may also use the raise hand reaction to be recognized. And if you want to state your concerns. So those in attendance in a group, kindly follow these health protocols. Number 1, make sure to properly wear your masks, covering the nose and mouth. Number 2, sanitize your hands using alcohol and avoid touching touching surfaces. Third, avoid touching your face. Fourth, observe 1 meter distance or at least 1 meter distance from each other. Practice social or physical distancing at all times. Fifth, avoid conversation more than 15 minutes. Sixth, refrain from moving around. And lastly, make sure to follow these protocols for everybody's safety. Follow health protocols all throughout the activity and for your other activities in your LGUs and your locality or agencies now, since we are still in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. So it's almost 2 o'clock, about time. So without further ado, youths of Caraga region, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the information drive on responsible voting of the youth and 2022 elections in Caraga region. I am Dr. Jason Ryan Lam, your host. To start, let's have an opening prayer to be followed by the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
Lord of wisdom, source of intelligence, we welcome you to this auspicious gathering, an august moment for the pursuit of knowledge that is offered for the glory of your name. We do not wish to ask you more than just you joining us today, but we look forward to your heavenly grace to amplify the desire for truth, to look up for and become prudent to learning. Keep us grounded in your love and mercy as we traverse a challenging path to keeping the inclination of understanding you and your most awe-inspiring creation. Be with us, O Lord, and descend your Spirit on us to maintain an earnest desire for knowledge, truth, and understanding you, the guide of the wise, the stronghold of the learned. This we ask through Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Alam ng puso
Okay, thank you for your attention. Recording. Thank you for your attention once again. At this point, let's acknowledge the key officials and participants of this activity. To start with, we have the DILG Undersecretary for Plans, Public Affairs, and Communications, Jonathan E. Malaya. We have DILG 13 Regional Director Lilibet A. Famasión, CESO 3. DILG 13 Assistant Regional Director, Engineer Donald A. Seronay. We have DILG 13 LGMID Chief, Ray Gregory F. Haranilla. We have COMELEC 13 Regional Election Director, Attorney Rimlani M. Tambuang. COMELEC 13 Assistant Regional Election Director, Attorney Geraldine C. Samson. Lente Philippines Executive Director, Attorney Rona Ann Caritos, represented by Project Director, Attorney Maris Aldezar. And all the DILG field officers and COMELEC election officers out there, welcome to the activity. For the acknowledgement of participants, since we cannot call your name one by one, kindly open your camera once your province or LGU is called. So while your LGU is not yet called, please turn off or close your camera. So do we have camera ba? May I ask the participants, please comment in the chat box if you have camera or react button. Kindly push the react button. A thumbs up if you have camera. So once your LGU is called, kindly open the camera. So kung wala pa, maaari po bang i-close muna natin yung mga camera natin hanggat hindi pa natatawag yung LGU po ninyo. By the way, we have also parties and delegates from our central office, no, DILG central office. That's why kung maaari po, pwede po tayo mag-Tagalog as much as possible. Again, acknowledging the participants from the province of Agusan del Norte. Please open your camera po on Kaway-Kaway if you'd like to, or any reaction po. Kindly use the reaction button. Pwede po mag-heart, mag-clap, anything. Just use the reaction button. Welcome po to this activity. Okay, those are the participants from the province of Agusan del Norte. Now we have the participants from the province of Agusan del Sur. Can you open your camera po from Agusan del Sur? I can see from DILG Loreto, no, the municipality of Loreto, Agusan del Sur. I presume, no, Agusan Sur ning Loreto. Tama po ba? Thumbs up po. Okay, around 40 plus po sila. They are 40 plus in the municipality of Loreto. Welcome to this activity. Those are the participants from the province of Agusan del Sur. Now, acknowledging the participants from the province of Dinagat Islands. PDI, are you there? Please open your camera. Kindly open your camera. We have one yata. Okay, welcome from the municipality of Basilisa, Dinagat Islands. Welcome po, and to all the participants from the province of Dinagat Islands. Now we acknowledge the participants from the province of Surigao del Norte. Okay, marami rin po sila. Welcome po to this activity. Those are the participants from the province of Surigao del Norte. Now acknowledging the participants from the province of Surigao del Sur. Kindly open your camera. Welcome po. We have from the municipality of Marihatag, Barangay Pagantayan. Okay. Again, we request everyone to please rename your account so that we can properly acknowledge your agency or your LGU, as well as your name. So those are the participants from the province of Surigao del Sur. Now, the last but not the least, we acknowledge the participants coming from the lone, highly urbanized city of Caraga region, the city of Butuan. Do we have participants from Butuan City? Ang pinakamalayong syudad, no, mula sa amin, mula sa regional office, located in Barangay Duungan, Butuan City. Meron. Yes, we have participants from the city of Butuan. Miss Charlotte. Sino pa ba? Ang dami. Welcome to this activity. Okay, that's it. Again, we welcome you all now to this activity, and to express his warm welcome for all of us, let's hear the welcome remarks of our very own DILG Undersecretary Jonathan E. Malaya. Can we give him a virtual applause?
Magandang araw po sa lahat. My warmest greetings to all our guests and participants. Welcome to the regional series of Information Drive in Responsible Voting of the Youth and the 2022 elections. Allow me to thank our partners from the COMELEC, Legal Network for Truthful Elections or Lente Philippines, and the National Youth Commission for sharing their time and knowledge on the significance of this voters' education campaign, as well as the important role played by the youth in responsible voting. Thank you for joining us in our shared task of promoting fair, honest, and safe national and local elections during this time of pandemic. Let me also acknowledge the participation of the regional offices of this department, our Sangguniang Kabataan, youth organization leaders, civil society organizations, and other partner agencies. It's always a delight and honor to be speaking in front of the youth with this kind of activity. Ang kaibahan nga lang po ngayon ay nasa virtual natin po ito ginagawa. This is truly a significant time to gather and talk about your valuable role in shaping our nation's future. As a cornerstone of our democratic ideals, we have the inherent responsibility to take part in the elections. We had successfully launched the series last April 4, 2022 here in Metro Manila, and it was interactive and became an avenue to learn from COMELEC, Lente Philippines, and the DILG. Doon po naranasan ng ating mga kabataan, lalo-lalo na ang mga first-time voters, ang isang mock election, kung saan sila ay nakahawak na mga sample ballots at mga markers at tinuruan ng tamang paggamit ng vote counting machine upang ihanda sila sa darating na eleksyon sa susunod na buwan. Sa ilang rehiyon, ito ay mararanasan ninyo. Samantala, sa ilan naman, i-demo ito ng COMELEC para mas maintindihan nyo ang paggamit ng VCM. We are very glad to have this voters education campaign with the COMELEC, since the department expresses its full commitment to promote peace and order and public safety, the successful conduct of the elections, walang bias at kinikilingan as we present the guidelines and conduct to be observed during this electoral process. Kami po ay sa DILG ay excited na may palaganap itong InfoDrive sa iba't ibang rehiyon ng bansa, kasama ang mga ahensya na tumutulong sa paggabay sa mga kabataan sa tamang proseso ng pagboto at pagpili ng karapat-dapat na kandidato. With the 2022 elections just around the corner, we will soon be casting our votes. And we at the DILG enjoin everyone in ensuring the safety of all, as well as the integrity, credibility, and safety of the elections in our countrymen. Your contribution to the nation will be essential for future generations. The youth are the inheritors of this land, and I trust that as we go further along in this InfoDrive, we can imbue the spirit of nationalism and solidarity to the youth across different sectors so that we may collectively practice our right to vote. Congratulations po sa ating mga DILG regional offices for taking on this challenge and for successfully running this voters education information drive, and for always exerting your efforts for public service. Let us also utilize the advantages of social media with a sense of responsibility and utmost regard to fact-based information. Let us maximize this opportune time to ask questions, participate, and take part in this indispensable event in determining our future leaders. Let's continue to be the agents of change, and together, let us build a brighter future for all. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay po tayong lahat at ang ating bansa.
Thank you very much, DILG Undersecretary Malaya, for the message and words of support and welcome. I hope every youth had remember what Yusik Malaya said. At this juncture, let's hear a message from the Regional Director of COMELEC 13, Attorney Rimlani M. Tambuang, represented by their Assistant Regional Director. Please welcome Attorney Geraldine C. Samson. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Ours is a democratic and republican state. Sovereignty resides in the people, and all government authority emanates from them. In the litany of state principles and policies found in Section 1, Article 2 of the Philippine Constitution, this is the very first state principle and policy. And this is where our rights as Filipino citizens anchors where we want to go as a country and how do we want to sail as a nation. My respect to Honorable Jonathan E. Malaya, Mambet, Regional Director Lilibet A. Pamacion of the DILG, of course to Attorney Rona Ann Caritos of the Executive Director of Linte Philippines. Our appreciation for her spearheading this activity, our Sangguniang Kabataan members, officials, and members, the National Youth Commission, and I'd like to make special mention of our participants from Sibagat Agusan del Sur. I am a Sibagat nun. Good afternoon, everyone. If I may ask our SK participants, since your official mandate, have you ever asked yourselves, why do you have to care about elections? Well, aside from being in your position by reason of election, I was once an SK member, counselor, and when I joined COMELEC, I must admit it was the first time that I asked myself why I must concern myself with elections. Well, the short explanation is that we all have to because it will affect the exercise of our rights. We are the passengers of the Philippine boat navigating in a democratic sea. That's the short explanation. Simply put, kasi parte tayo ng demokrasya ng bansang Pilipinas at ang pakikialam natin ay malaki ang epekto sa kung ano ang kinabukasan natin bilang Pilipino at bilang isang bansa. On a more serious note, the constitutional provision that I mentioned earlier makes elections inseparably part of democracy and necessitates free and meaningful exercise of political rights for all. The COMELEC and all stakeholders ensure that you, all of us, the voters, are able to exercise our political rights peacefully. Elections being an essential part of our being as a Filipino citizen, it requires the responsible person in each one of us to be proactive. Hindi yung, sige lang, mag-election lang sila dyan, wala akong pakialam. Elections requires us to be proactive and begin our days with the end in mind. Start with what is our goal. These are the first two of Franklin Covey's 7 habits for highly effective people. The first one being proactive. It's being proactive. This pushes us to perform our responsible citizen duties by doing and not by taking a passive stance. So if you want to say that you are a Filipino, a responsible one, then you have to be proactive. You act. Hindi yung naghihintay ka kung merong sabihin sa'yo, anong gagawin mo. This proactivity will eventually enlarge our circle of influence, and unconsciously, we influence others to be proactive also for a safe 2022. When we say safe, this is the slogan for the 2022 elections. It means secured, accurate, free, and fair elections. We let our goal, that is the better way of living, and is set in the Philippine Long-Term Development Plan. I hope everybody, all SK participants are familiar with the Philippine Long-Term Development Plan. We let our goal as set in the Philippine Long-Term Development Plan sit in our hearts and in our minds, so that naturally, when we know our goal, we're able to identify the path that we should be taking and the candidates whom we should vote. When we know where we are going, we will always know what to do. In the vernacular, sorry po sa mga Tagalog, in the vernacular, magpakabana, aktibong mo salmot, manggialamon, aron mamahimong mabuhangahon ang atong boto. We will not just vote. We will cast a meaningful vote on May 9 because it is the most responsible act for a matatag, maginhawa at panatag na buhay para sa lahat. That is ambition natin 2040. In behalf of the Commission on Elections, Caraga Region, headed by our Regional Election Director, Attorney Remlani M. Tambuang, and the rest of Team Caraga, thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you also, ARD Samson of Comelec Caraga, for the wonderful and very meaningful message. Again, reiterating what ARD Samson said to all our participants now, that we will cast a meaningful vote this coming May 9, 2022 elections. Please remember that. Thank you very much, ARD. So our DILG 13 Regional Director also held a message for us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome RD Lilibet A. Famacion, Seso 3.
A pleasant afternoon to all the participants, our active youth leaders and young citizens, and to our activity organizers, most especially to the ILG Undersecretary for Plans, Public Affairs, and Communication, Jonathan E. Malaya, Comelec 13 Regional Election Director, Attorney Remlani M. Tambuang, ARD of Comelec 13, Attorney Geraldine Samson, Lente Philippines Executive Director, Attorney Rona Caritos, and DILG 13 ARD, Engineer Donald Seronay. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. The national and local elections on May 9, 2022 is fast approaching. Therefore, this activity that we're having now is very timely. And I would like to congratulate our DILG Central Office through the Center for Local and Constitutional Reform Project Management Office, or CRPMO, for taking the initiative of holding this activity that orients, educates our youth as young voters and the citizens alike on the laws on responsible voting. I also give thanks to our partners, the Commission on Elections at the national and regional levels, the National Youth Commission, the Liga ng mga Sangguniang Kabataan, and our partner CISO, the Lente Philippines, for the untiring support and involvement to this endeavor. This activity marks a meaningful purpose for the youth in Caraga region and the rest of the country as a potent vehicle on the information drive for the upcoming elections. Also, this activity, which started last April 4, 2022 at the National Capital Region, with the ILG taking the lead, followed by other regions, and now it's Caraga's turn. The activity envisions of molding the youth to become a responsible and accountable citizen of the country, especially during the election period. So, to those first-time voters watching today, I encourage you to intently listen to the discussions and to put to action what insights you gain from this activity. Likewise, this Info Drive is an opportunity for you to participate in nation building by way of actively attending and participating in democratic processes. So during the open forum, please don't be shy to ask relevant questions to our discussants and even voice out your comments, suggestions, or objections. Let your doubts on election-related concerns be cleared by the words of the competent authorities, the COMELEC, Lente Philippines, and our department, the DILG. So I encourage all the participants to internalize the resource person's discussion, as our time is too short, just a half day. And so please maximize it for your active participation. And please do share to the other youths, to our respective families, even to the citizenry, the learnings gained. I hope you will vote wisely and heartily this coming election, and please do what is lawful and rightful for the benefit of everyone, the general public. Like the words of our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal, that the youth is the hope of the future, live today and forever. And let hope springs eternal, honest, orderly, and peaceful elections. Daghang salamat, stay safe, and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, RD Deb, for the great message and words of encouragement. Just to show the participants the flow of our activity this afternoon, allow me to show the program flow. Is it clear on your screen? So we have the registration, invocation, and national anthem, followed by the welcome remarks of our DILG Undersecretary Malaya, and messages from Comelec RD, Arid, and message from RD Formation of DILG 13. And our discussion this afternoon will be as follows. Now we have electoral issues and election misinformation or disinformation from Lente Philippines, roles and responsibilities of local elected officials and other local government employees during election period from DILG 13, and discussion on Comelec Resolution 10727 from Comelec 13. And last part will be the demonstration of voting counting machine, and after which there will be an open forum and photos. Thank you. So at this time, we will now proceed with the discussion proper. As what RD Formation said, please listen carefully and heartily to the discussions. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask our discussants during our open forum afterwards. Our first speaker is one of the volunteer lawyers of the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, or Lente Philippines. She joined the organization in 2014 as part of the Lente National Secretariat when she was a law student at the Ateneo Law School. She presently works in a private law firm in Manila and is also currently the project director for Abuse of State Resources, or ASR, monitoring project of the organization. To discuss electoral issues and election misinformation, disinformation, let's welcome Attorney Maris Aldeza.
Ay, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Naririnig niyo po ako?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear po. Good afternoon po and welcome.
Okay. Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon po sa lahat at syempre sa mga participants natin. Kami po sa Lente, nagpapasalamat po sa DILG at naimbitahan po kami para magsalita ngayong hapon. So, nung naimbitahan po kami, medyo kinakabahan ako, lalo na yung oras natin ngayon, no? 2:00, at alam natin na karamihan sa mga participants natin sa ganitong oras ay medyo nakakaantok. Pero sana po sa susunod na 30 minutes ay samahan niyo ako dito sa discussion natin ng electoral issues at yung mga iba't ibang klase ng misinformation at disinformation na relevant, especially this election. So sa Lente po, meron po kaming hashtag sa atin ang election. Safe, accountable, transparent, inclusive elections, na ang goal po natin ay magkaroon ng national public confidence. So next slide po. Okay. Allow me po muna to introduce yung Lente. But before that, before I introduce po yung Lente, mag-energy check po muna tayo sa ating mga participants. Pwede po bang mag-react kayo? I-check nyo po. Mag-send po kayo ng reactions kung ano yung nafe-feel nyo ngayong oras na ito. Kung inaantok ba kayo, kung may energy pa ba. Mag-send lang po tayo sa reaction bago tayo magsimula sa ating discussion ngayong hapon. Okay. Sige po, magsisimula na po ako. Kami po ang grupong Lente, naitatag po kami noong 2007. Kami po ay grupo ng mga volunteer lawyers, law students, paralegals at iba't iba pa pong grassroots volunteers. Ang offshoot po ng Lente, kung matatandaan ninyo, ay natatandaan niyo po ba, marami po sa ating participants ngayon ay mga kabataan. So, noong 2004 po, nagkaroon po ng issue about Hello Garci. So, nung mga panahon na po yun, nung pumutok yung issue ng Hello Garci, Ang mga election watchdogs po natin noon ay mga PPCRB, NAMTREL, at may na-realize po yung mga founders ng Lente, katulad po nila Commissioner Christian Monsod noong mga panahon na yon, na walang mga legal groups na nagbabantay sa proseso ng eleksyon. Kaya po noong 2007, naitatag po yung grupo ng Lente at hanggang ngayon po nagmo-monitor po kami sa election, especially on the legal aspect po during election period. So ang mission po namin ay to ensure truthful elections and meaningful electoral participation. Katulad po nung sinabi ni ASEC Attorney Geraldine kanina, na itanong niyo na po ba sa sarili niyo kung bakit tayo nakikilahok sa eleksyon. Nakikilahok tayo dahil ito ay parte ng demokrasya at malaki yung role ng kabataan, especially yung kabataan this election. So malalaman natin mamaya kung bakit napakalaki ng role ng kabataan sa pag-participate, hindi lamang pag-participate sa pagboto, ngunit pati sa pagtakbo sa ating eleksyon. So tutuloy na po tayo sa ating discussion. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide po. So kapag naririnig po natin ang electoral issues, ano po yung una nyong pumapasok sa isip nyo kapag nababasa o naririnig yung salitang electoral issues? Ito po yung pag-uusapan natin ngayong hapon. Pero gusto ko pong malaman, especially po din sa mga SK natin na participants, kapag naririnig nyo ang salitang electoral issues, ano po yung mga naiisip nyo, unang pumapasok sa isip nyo? Sige po, maghintay po ako ng 30 seconds to 1 minute. Type nyo lang po sa chat box. Kapag po napapag-usapan ang salitang electoral issue, ano po ang pumapasok sa inyong isipan? Sabi po ni Ma'am Ernie, misinformation mula sa Butuan, political dynasty. Okay, sige po, next slide po tayo. So tama po, no, yung sinabi ni Miss Ernie at ng ating mga participants mula sa Barangay Consortia. Ito po yung mga misinformation, political dynasty, electoral complaints. Yan po yung mga napapag-usapang issue talaga during election. Especially yung misinformation, kasama po yan sa tatalakayan natin ngayong hapon. Mamaya po ipapaliwanag po natin yung iba't ibang klase ng misinformation. At kasama rin po sa pag-uusapan mamaya, tama po yung political dynasty. So ito po, una pong electoral issue na gusto kong pag-usapan natin ay yung premature campaigning. So ano ba itong premature campaigning? Ang premature campaigning, dito nyo makikita yung mga, kumbaga, bida-bida. Yung pagka-file ng Certificate of Candidacy ng October, nangangampanya na. So pinagbabawal ba yun sa batas? Unfortunately, wala tayong batas ngayon na nagbabawal sa premature campaigning. Bakit? Noong naipasa yung RA 9369 o yung Revised Automated Election Law, doon na-define kung ano nga ba ang isang kandidato. At ang isang kandidato ay magiging kandidato lamang sa umpisa ng araw ng campaign period. So meron tayong window mula sa pag-file ng Certificate of Candidacy ng around October hanggang for this election ng ating national campaign period for national positions, nagsimula yan no February 8. So yung window period from October filing ng COC hanggang dun sa pag-umpisa ng ating campaign period, ang dami nang naglalabasan dyan. Meron tayong nakikitang mga namimigay ng pera, meron tayong namimigay na ng mga flyers during that time, pero bawal ba yun? Ang sabi sa batas natin, wala tayong existing law prohibiting premature campaigning. And therefore, lahat ng akala nating nagko-commit ng election offenses nung panahon na yon, hindi pa sila liable sa mga election offenses precisely because hindi pa sila considered na kandidato. Ito rin yung sinabi ng Supreme Court ng ating Korte Suprema sa kaso ng Peñera versus Comelec, na hindi pa sila considered to be doing premature campaigning kasi hindi pa nga start ng campaign period. Next slide po tayo. Okay, kaakibat naman ng issue ng premature campaigning ay yung campaign finance. Meron tayo sa batas natin, I think siguro alam rin to ng ating mga kabataan sa SK, na meron tayong mga threshold o mga expenditure limit sa RA 7166. Ito pong RA 7166 o yung an act providing for synchronized election. Nag-set siya ng mga expenditure limit. Pero kung tatandaan po natin, ito po ay ipinasa pa 31 years ago. So kung tutuusin, mas matanda pa po ito sa akin at mas malamang mas matanda pa po ito sa nakakarami sa mga participants natin. So yung mga limit, yung mga expenditure limit na nakalagay doon sa batas na yun ay outdated na. Tandaan natin, every year tumataas yung inflation rate natin. No? So kung ibig sabihin, yung halaga ng piso noong panahon na yun, ay iba na dun sa halaga ng piso sa panahon natin ngayon. So campaign finance expenses, yung mga gastos dito, ay directly connected sa governance after election. Katulad nga, I think nabasa ko sa news recently, ang sabi ni Mayor Vico, kapag mas marami yung ginagastos mo during campaign, mas malaki yung babawiin mo kapag ikaw na ay naupo. Kaya ang issue ng campaign finance, directly related yan sa governance. So, kung makikita natin, mababa, di ba? Yung mga expenditure limit. So, nagiging practice na tuloy ng iba sa atin, mga politiko o mga kandidato dahil required sila magpasa ng SOSE o yung Statement of Contribution and Expenses na nag-underreport sila para lang hindi sila mag-exceed dun sa limit ng ating sina-add sa batas. Next slide po. Ayan, ito po yung mga sinasabi kong expenditure limits kanina. Ito po ay per registered voter. So kapag ikaw ay isang individual candidate na may political party, ang maaaring mong gastusin ay 3 pesos per registered voter. At kung ikaw naman ay suportado or nominated ng isang political party, maaari kang gumastos ng 5 pesos per registered voter. At sa mga political parties natin, 5 pesos din. At dun sa mga tumatakbo for national positions such as president or vice president, meron silang threshold na or expenditure limit na 10 pesos per registered voter. So makikita nyo dito parang medyo mababa. Kaya yun yung sinasabi ko kanina na marami dun sa mga kandidato natin, nagre-resort na lang dun sa underreporting sa pag-file ng kanilang SOSE. So sana ito yung isa sa mga kailangan i-revisit natin na election laws. Next slide po. Ito po, yung susunod naman na electoral issue, yung party list representation. So kapag sinabi natin na party list representation, madalas pumapasok sa ating isipan ay dapat ito lamang yung mga marginalized and underrepresented sectors. However, isa po itong misconception. Bakit? Kasi kung makikita po natin, dun po ipinaliwanag siya ng ating Korte Suprema, dun sa case ng Atong Paglaom. Ang sabi nila, ininterpret nila na ito, lahat nito ay open to all sectors. Kaya ngayon kung makikita nyo, di ba meron tayong mga party list for ang probinsyano party list. I think meron din tayong yung sa tutuktuhin party list. So kung iisipin natin, di ba, ano bang sektor yung inirerepresenta ng mga party list na ito? Bakit to pinapayagan ng COMELEC? But in reality po, hindi po kasi bawal yung mga party list na ito. Actually, allowed sila under the law na tumakbo. So common misconception po na yung party list ay limitado lamang sa ating mga marginalized and underrepresented sectors. So katulad nga po ng nakalagay dito, yung deliberation po ng framers ng ating constitution ay nagsasabi na hindi nila intended to be exclusive lamang sa mga marginalized or underrepresented sectors. It was meant to be open sa lahat ng grupo. Kaya ngayon makikita niyo, di ba? Dito rin papasok yung issue ng political dynasty. So sa issue ng political dynasty naman, papasok siya dito. Halimbawa, meron tayong mga congressmen na na-exhaust na nila yung term na nila. So bawal na silang tumakbo, di ba, dun sa mga distrito nila. So dito pumapasok ngayon yung abuse naman on the part of candidate dito sa gap na to. So kaya related din tong issue na to, yung sa party list representation, dun sa electoral issue ng political dynasty dahil minsan naaabuso. Next slide po. Ito naman po, isa po sa mga issue ngayon ay yung elections during COVID. So ito po, first time I think sa atin na magkakaroon tayo ng election during pandemic time. So kung matatandaan niyo po, nung kasagsagan ng COVID, I think 2020 to 2021, nagkaroon ng moves yung ibang grupo na magkaroon tayo ng no elections. Kumbaga, ipapatigil, hindi muna tayo magkakaroon ng 2022 elections dahil nga sa risk of COVID-19. Pero buti na lang, natuloy po tayo dahil kung hindi po matutuloy ito po ay violation ng ating constitutional right of suffrage and at our right to participate, especially in the electoral process. Next slide po. Ayan. Electoral competitiveness. So isa rin po itong issue ngayong election, especially because dumadami yung mga number ng uncontested o yung tinatawag nating unopposed positions. So katulad po ng sinabi ko kanina, dumadami po yung political dynasties. The political dynasties are consolidating their power, especially kapag walang kumakalaban. Tandaan po natin, political dynasties in itself po, it's not bad, especially kung ang role naman nila, kung talaga namang nagseserbisyo sila sa publiko. But nagkakaroon lamang po ng problema kung nawawala ng karapatan yung ibang mga tumatakbo na magkaroon ng posisyon. So as of March 2022, ayon po sa datos sa DILG, out of the 42,046 barangays, marami pa rin po sa ating barangay. Libo-libo pa rin po yung walang SK officials. Around 5,787 barangays po, wala po tayong SK chairman. And only 18,417 barangays out of these 42,000 yung may kumpletong council. So ano po yung ibig sabihin nito? Kulang po yung mga SK officials natin. Kumbaga, isinagawa po, itinatag po yung SK natin para magkaroon ng training ground para po sa ating mga future leaders. So kapag kulang po yung SK natin, nababawasan din po yung mga pagkakataon, yung mga tsansa na meron tayong mag-elevate sila into higher positions afterwards, after nung kanilang pamumuno. Next slide po. Ito po, datos po mula sa COMELEC. 845 candidates po this May 9 election, running uncontested, unopposed, wala pong kalaban. So sa congressional seats alone, out of 253, 39 din po yung walang kalaban. And then for the provincial governor seats, 11 out of 81, wala rin pong kalaban. And sa Sangguniang Panlalawigan, 45 out of 782 seats are also uncontested. So sa position po ng city or municipal mayoralty positions, a total of 203 out of 1,634 candidates, wala rin pong kalaban. At ganun din po sa ating mga seats for councilors, 284 positions are uncontested. Next slide po. So ito po ang datos ng vacant SK councils sa region natin, sa region 13. So makikita po natin sa Agusan del Norte, mataas po yung ating participation, ano? Wala pong vacant sa ating SK councils. Sa Agusan del Sur, 20 of 314 SK councils are vacant. Sa Dinagat Island po, meron tayong 6. Sa Surigao del Norte, meron po tayong 30 of 335 SKs vacant, SK councils are vacant. And sa Surigao del Sur po, meron pong 3. So kung titignan po natin yung datos compared po sa ibang regions, medyo mataas po yung participation ng ating SK or yung composition ng SK dito sa region natin. So magandang balita ito, especially for our future leaders. And tatandaan po natin this 2022 election, 2022 alone, nagkakaroon tayo ng 2 election. Hindi lamang yung sa May 9 election, Pero meron din tayo for the barangay election. Hopefully, hindi na siya ma-postpone this December. Next slide po. So, having said all of that, kayo, ano yung mga electoral issues in addition dun sa mga nakita nyo pa at dun sa mga nasabi kanina katulad ng misinformation, election complaint? Ano-ano pa? Meron pa ba kayo nakitang electoral issues? Especially in your area. Sige po, i-type niyo lang po sa chat box. Kung meron pa kayong ibang nakikitang mga electoral issues. Babalikan ko lamang po yung sinabi kanina, no? Electoral issue talaga yung misinformation, especially during this election. Kasi makikita natin ang paggamit ng social media. Hindi lamang ngayong election na ito. Nag-start ito ng 2016 election. Mas na-heightened lang yung paggamit ng ating social media ngayon. At makikita nyo yan, lalo-lalo na tayo, mga Pilipino, isa sa mga pinaka-mataas na numero gumamit ng Facebook users, pinakamaraming Facebook users sa buong mundo. Sige po, next slide po. Ayan, pag-usapan naman natin ngayon yung election misinformation and disinformation. Sige po, next slide. Okay. Katulad po yung sinasabi ko kanina, mataas yung paggamit natin ng social media. Kung mapapansin nyo, hindi lang to ngayon, nag-start ito especially noong 2016 elections. Diyan nagsimula yung paglabas ng mga iba't ibang bloggers endorsing a candidate. So nung time na yun, wala pa masyadong regulation. So nung 2019 election, nag-issue yung ating COMELEC. Yung COMELEC promulgated resolution number 10488 na kung saan nire-regulate nila yung paggamit ng internet, mobile, and social media ng ating mga candidates. So dun lang sa resolution na yun, ang sinasabi ay kailangan mag-register sa COMELEC ng kanilang social media page, yung social media page or blog ng mga kandidato. Kailangan nilang i-register sa COMELEC yung kanilang mga pages and hindi lamang ng candidate but also their political party. So yung deadline for the 2022 election, itong for the May 9, 2022 election, yung deadline ng registration ng mga website or social media sites ng mga candidates natin or nung kanilang political party ay noong January 31, 2022. Next slide po. Ito, pagpasapan natin ngayon, ano ba yung kaibahan ng misinformation, disinformation, at malinformation? Ako mas gusto kong tutukan yung pagkakaiba dito sa misinformation at disinformation. Mamaya magbibigay tayo ng mga iba't ibang examples para mas maintindihan natin yung kaibahan dun sa dalawa. But basically, for misinformation, ito yung mga maling impormasyon, yung ibinabahagi, pero wala kang masamang intensyon. So ano yung ibig sabihin nito? Yung classic example nito, yung nag-scroll ka sa Facebook, tapos may nabasa ka. Tapos mali pala siya, fake news pala siya, pero dahil hindi ka nag-fact check, hindi mo alam, hindi ka aware na mali siya at na-share mo. So yun yung tinatawag na misinformation. So sa disinformation naman, ito yung mga maling impormasyon ang ibinahagi na may masamang intensyon. So sa disinformation, ikaw ay kino-consider as, ito yung mga fake news peddlers. Ikaw mismo yung gumagawa ng fake news at ikaw yung nagpapakalat nito. Especially ito, sa social media. Social media talaga to talamak ngayon. At ang malinformation naman, ito yung mga tunay naman na impormasyon ang ibinabahagi, pero sa mali o masamang intensyon. So, ngayong hapon, mas mag-focus tayo dun sa discussion ng misinformation at disinformation. Next slide po. Okay, ito pinapakita lamang dito yung sa Venn diagram na ito. Yung kaibahan ng misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. So sa misinformation, ito yung may mga false connection, misleading content. Sa disinformation, dito papasok yung false context, imposter content, manipulated content, fabricated content. At sa malinformation, dito lumalabas yung some leaks, some harassment, some hate speech. Dito yung medyo may konting katotohanan pa, pero dahil nga may intention ka na manira ng kapwa, dito papasok yung malinformation. So bakit tayo may Venn diagram? Ito sa kabuuan, ito yung tinatawag natin na fake news. Mag-iiba lamang yan, depende dun sa intention ng nag-share. Next slide po tayo. Ito yung mga uri ng mis at disinformation. Mula po sa left, papunta sa right, mula sa kaliwa, papunta sa kanan. Diyan po makikita yung gravity o yung intention ng panlilinlang. So mauna tayo dun sa satire o parody, misleading content, imposter content, fabricated content, false connection, false context, manipulated content. Sa mga susunod po na slide, may explain po itong mga to ng mas mabuti. Next slide po. Next slide po. Sorry. Okay. Sa satire or parody, ito yung paggaya ng mga lehitimong balita upang magpahayag ng katatawanan. I think marami sa atin, sa ating mga participants, especially yung mga kabataan, nakakakita nito at mas nadi-distinguish natin kung ano yung satire sa hindi, as opposed dun sa, for example, sa parents natin, baka mas hindi nila ma-distinguish, diba, ang difference ng satire sa katotohanan. So isang example nito, itong headline na to, CBCP develops apps to help Christians track their ligtas points. So hindi naman talaga gumawa ang CBCP ng ganitong app. Pero merong mga satire groups or mga satire pages na nagsabing gumawa sila nito. So makikita natin dito, di ba, ligtas points kapag ikaw ay nakakagawa ng mga mabuting bagay. Kung may mga kalokohan ka naman, doon tayo nagkakaroon ng minus ligtas points. So ito hindi siya totoo. Ito ay paggaya lamang sa mga legitimate news para magpahayag ng katatawanan. Next slide po. False connection. Ito naman dito papasok yung clickbait. Marami nito ang mabibiktima nito yung mga free data users ng Facebook kasi hindi mo ma-open yung article mismo. Makikita mo lang yung headline. So ito yung mga ulo ng mga balita o headline, litrato o caption na hindi tugma dun sa laman ng balita. Itong example na yan, itong ipinublish ng Billionario.com. BSP budgets 52.5 million for new logo. Ito yung kasagsagan na kinikriticize ng tao yung Bangko Sentral na ayon sa mga tao, hindi daw ganun kaganda yung logo. Pero bakit sila nag-budget ng 52.5 million pesos? So, nagkaroon ng outrage yung mga readers dahil ito yung headline. Pero once na-clinic mo yung article na to, wala doon nagsasabi na nag-allot talaga ng budget na 52.5 million pesos yung BSP for the new logo. So, ito yung isang example ng false connection, yung mga clickbait lang na balita. Marami din ito sa YouTube, for example. Iba yung title, pero kapag clinic mo yung content, totally unrelated. Next slide po. Misleading content. Ito naman yung paggamit ng impormasyon upang ikaw ay iligaw sa tunay na impormasyon. So makikita nyo dito, yung sa misleading content, meron tayong dalawang point of view. So dito sa example na to, for example, si Prince William, sa isang point of view, parang iba yung ginagawa niya, parang masama yung nakalagay sa kamay niya. And then pag lumipat ka dun sa mas malinaw na point of view, makikita mo na actually 3 naman pala yung nire-raise niya at hindi isang finger lang. So ito isa tong example ng mga misleading content. Marami pang examples nito, especially sa social media. I know yung mga participants natin, babad tayo sa Facebook, sa Twitter, and even sa TikTok. Maraming misleading content. At ang intention nito ay iligaw tayo sa tunay na impormasyon. So next slide. Ito naman po, false context. Ito yung nilalaman o content ginagamit ng wala sa original na konteksto. I think ito po, nangyari ito nung unang parte ng kampanya na kung saan yung supporters po ng ilang kandidato ay nagsabi na ito yung attendees nila sa isang campaign rallies. But a quick fact check sa Google, makikita mo that it actually came from 2010 Thai political protest. Madali na lang po mag-fact check ngayon kasi meron na tayong mga apps or I think websites na kung saan pwede na nila mag-compare ng dalawang picture at matitrace niya kung saan nanggaling. So ito po, isa po itong example ng false context kasi hindi naman talaga yun yung totoong nangyari. Wala sa original na konteksto yung paggamit ng isang content. Next slide po. Ito naman, imposter content. Nakikita niyo rin to. Feeling ko alam din to ng ating mga, especially mga kabataan. Ito yung paggamit ng pangalan at format ng mga kilalang news sites. So, maraming ganito. And recently, I think hindi lamang si Queen Elizabeth yung na-misquote dito. I think meron din yung mga Grey's Anatomy. So, ito po, nagagamit po ito ng mga ating fake news peddlers para paniwalain yung mga tao na ang isang pahayag o isang statement ng isang tao ina-attribute when in truth and in fact, hindi naman talaga yun yung totoong sinasabi niya. So, yun yung tinatawag nating imposter content. Ginagamit yung format or news ng mga kilalang news site katabi ng mga impormasyong hindi naman galing sa mga news site na ito. So, next slide po. Manipulated content. Ito naman yung pagmamanipula sa mga lehitimong impormasyon upang ito ay makapanloko. So ito po, lalo na po sa mga students, no? Kapag bumabagyo, di ba? O kaya may mga earthquake, for example, ang una nating puntahan sa Twitter o kaya sa Facebook. So ito po, itong manipulated content, ginagawa po ito minsan karamihan. Ang nagko-comment nito yung mga estudyanteng walang magawa sa buhay. Yung magpo-post lamang ng walang pasok. When in truth and in fact, hindi po nag-announce yung local government o yung DepEd o yung CHED na walang pasok. So iyan po ay isa sa example ng manipulated content. Lehitimo ng impormasyon pero ginagamit upang makapanloko, makapang-mislead ng ating mga readers. Next slide po. Fabricated content. Itong fabricated content nito ay related ito dun sa imposter content. Yung ina-attribute sa'yo, yung isang statement na hindi naman talaga nanggaling sa'yo. So yung nilalaman o content ay ganap at lubusang peke. So isa lamang po ito sa mga examples ng fabricated content. But if you go check your Facebook, your Twitter, especially on TikTok, marami pong fabricated content doon. Next slide po. Okay. So dun tayo sa information disorder. So having said all of that, lahat ng examples ng mga fake news, sa kabuuan po pwede natin sila tawaging fake news. Pero nagkakaiba lang yan. Depende dun sa intent ng nagpapakalat. Kung alam mo, kung aware ka na mali siya at ipinakalat mo pa rin, disinformation yan. Dito po sa information disorder, meron tayong tatlong elemento. May agent, message, and interpreter. So, merong creator ng message. Ito yung pag-likha. For example, nag-post si X ng video ni Y na gumagamit ng alcohol habang nangangandidato at sinabi niya si Y ay nandidiri sa ibang tao. So, kapag ganyan lang yung message, nag-create at hindi nag-fact check yung pinagpasahan mo ng message na yan, ginagawang basihan ito ng ibang FB pages sa paggawa ng bagong content o report. Pwede yan ma-misinterpret na sa pagpasa-pasa ng messages, nag-iiba na yung konteksto. So yun yung agent, nagke-create ng message at papunta dun sa interpreter or dun sa pamamahagi. So yan po yung pag-ikot ng ating information. So tinatawag natin yung information disorder. Nawawala yung tamang konteksto ng ating mga impormasyon. Depende sa pagpapasa. Next slide po. Ito, kung napapansin nyo, maraming ito ngayon, lalo na ngayong eleksyon. Ang troll ay isang mapang-abusong tao. Sinasadya makakuha ng iyong atensyon sa pamamagitan ng pang-aasar, panunuya o paggamit ng masasamang salita. Tatnaan po natin ang goal ng troll ay maasar ka. So gagamit yan, ipe-penetrate niya, iti-trigger niya yung emotions mo para mawala ka sa logic mo, kumbaga. Kaya nga, di ba sinasabi sa atin, don't make decisions when emotions are high. So, doon ka ta-targetin ng troll. Makikita nyo yan sa mga different, mag-scroll lang kayo sa social media nyo, makakaspot kayo ng mga troll. Yun yung mga aasarin ka, magagamit ng masasamang salita Tapos, imbes na magkaroon kayo ng healthy discourse na pupunta sa personalan. So, yun yung goal ng troll. I-trigger niya yung emotions mo para yung reason mo, yung logic mo medyo bumaba. At kapag bumaba yung logic mo or reason mo dahil naapektuhan ng damdamin mo, mas mabilis na yung flow ng fake news o ng disinformation. So, yun talaga yung goal ng mga troll. Next slide po. So, kayong mga users, example, especially for the social media, ano yung mga election or misinformation that you have encountered so far? Marami to. Personally, nakikita natin to sa mga nasi-share hindi lamang ng mga friends natin but also ng mga kamag-anak natin. Yan, tama. Sabi ni Miss Ernie Grace, mga trolls. Ang trolls talaga, ang goal nila ay magkalat ng disinformation. Hindi lamang misinformation, pero merong intent. Meron tayong intensyon na makapagkalat ng mga maling impormasyon. So next slide po. So ano yung mga dapat gawin ng ating mga youth leaders para ma-immunize sila sa misinformation or disinformation? So ulitin ko po, ma-immunize, hindi natin ino-normalize, but ma-immunize. I think as youth leaders, syempre isasama ka ng sarili ko sa youth. Bilang mga youth leaders, ano yung mga pwede nating gawin para ma-immunize? At once na tayo ay mabigyan, masendan tayo ng mga messages, alam natin kung ano yung gagawin natin para tayo mismo sa sarili natin, hindi tayo maging peddler ng mga fake news. So next slide po. Okay, so how to spot fake news? So bilang mga kabataan, tayo na mismo yung mag-initiate to consider the source. Lahat ng nababasa natin, i-consider natin kung ano yung source. Basahin natin beyond, tanungin natin yung sarili natin. Joke ba to? Tama ba to? May sense ba yung sinasabi nito? Ano yung mga sources nito? At bago natin pindutin yung share, yung retweet, or yung repost, isipin natin kung makaka-apekto ba to, kung fake news ba to, magiging agent ba ako ng fake news, na fact check ko ba tong impormasyon nito? Again, especially during these elections, mapapansin nyo very heightened ang emotions ng ating mga supporters. At nagiging, kumbaga, imbes na magkaroon tayo ng mga healthy discussions, nagiging divisive na. It's because na-penetrate na ng ating mga trolls, ng fake news, yung ating flow of information, especially sa social media. So as youth, ito yung mga dapat natin gawin. Consider the source, mag-fact check at mag-fact check bago natin i-share. Dapat kung nakatanggap tayo ng fake news, tumigil na sa atin yun. Huwag na nating ipakalat pa. Titigil lang sa atin yun kapag tayo mismo ay chinek kung tama ba yung sources, kung tama ba. Also check your biases. Mag-ask ng experts, tanungin kung totoo ba to, joke ba to. Sabi nga ni Pia Words ba, think before you click. Ayan. Sige po, next slide po. Ito, katulad ng sinasabi ko kanina, parang ito lang, illustration lang siya ng pag-flow ng disinformation. So, merong isang marites na nagkalat ng chismis, tapos may dalawa na hindi nag-fact check. Tapos dito yung sa bandang taas, ito, hindi siya, nag-fact check siya, hindi niya kinalat yung rumor sa group chat. At ayun, tumigil na sa kanya yung fake news. Pero yung dalawang napagkalatan na minarites pa sa iba na hindi nag-fake news, dyan po nangyayari yung pagkalat ng disinformation sa social media. Nagiging network siya. Kaya sabi ko kanina, bilang youth, tayo na mismo yung mag-initiate para mag-fact check ng mga information na natatanggap natin. At kapag alam natin na hindi tama ito, tumigil na sana sa atin ito at wag na nating i-share pa. Next slide po. Ayan. Kaya importante yung role ng kabataan, ng youth vote ngayong election. Dahil ayon po sa datos, 56% ng ating voting population this coming May 9 election are comprised of the youth vote. So sino-sino ba yung mga youth vote dito? Alam ko pasok pa lahat ng karamihan ng participants natin dyan. So technically, ang youth vote po ay 15 to 30 years old, but for purposes of national election, ito po yung mga makakaboto lang yung mga 18. So 18 and 30 po. So kaya po mahalaga, katulad po ng sinabi kanina ni Assistant Regional Director ni Attorney Geraldine, mahalaga yung partisipasyon ng mga kabataan. Hindi lamang sa pagboto, hindi lamang sa pag-cast ng votes. Kami po sa Lente, katulad po ng diniscuss ko kanina, nakita nyo po yung datos natin na may maraming uncontested positions. At kapag mas maraming uncontested and opposed positions, mas lumalaki po yung kapangyarihan ng ating mga political dynasties. Kaya kami po sa Lente, mas ine-encourage po natin yung mga kabataan natin na tumakbo when your age permits, tumakbo po kayo sa especially sa local positions, because we really need a new breed of public servants. So this coming election po, our generation's vote or youth vote will decide the direction of our country for not only for the next 6 years, but even beyond. So mahalaga po yung pag-participate natin, at tayo po ay nagpapasalamat sa DILG sa pag-organize ng mga ganitong information drive, especially for our youth voters. So next slide po. Ayan. So dun po nag-end yung talk ko, at medyo marami pa po tayong pag-uusapan. I think may mga i-discuss pa po mamaya yung ating representatives from COMELEC and DILG tungkol sa proseso ng pagboto. So pwede nyo po kami i-contact sa aming social media accounts. Meron po kami sa Facebook, sa Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, meron din po sa YouTube. And ito po yung mga hotlines. And kung may mga tanong po kayo, pwede nyo pong itanong mamaya sa ating open forum. So salamat po, at sana po hindi pa kayo tulog. Hindi pa kayo tulog, at marami po kaming naibahagi sa inyo ngayong hapon. Thank you po.
Yes po ma'am, maraming salamat. Attorney Aldesa for that discussion. Can we give Attorney Aldesa a virtual applause please from the participants? Gising na gising po sila ma'am. As well as we listening to you ma'am. Maraming salamat po. Marami kami natutunan. So the key word, dear participants of the discussion, is fact check. We should verify the legitimacy of the news that we are receiving. Okay? Especially in this election period. So check the news that you are receiving through social media and other media outlets. So as we proceed, again, if you have queries, clarifications, or any comments, please chat in the chat box, and we will tackle them during the open forum. Our next speaker finished his master's in public administration at Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan. He undergone different trainings, seminars, and short courses here and abroad. He is the former OIC Chief of the Local Government Monitoring and Evaluation Division, or LGMED of DILG Caraga, and became its Chief of Administrative and Finance Division. At present, he is the Assistant Regional Director of DILG Caraga Region. To discuss the roles and responsibilities of local elected officials and other local government employees during election period, please welcome Engineer Donald A. Seronay. A round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jason Ryan Lam. To Attorney Maris Alisa, who had just delivered her discussion about electoral issues and election misinformation, disinformation. To Attorney Geraldine Samson, the Assistant Regional Election Director of COMELEC Caraga, and most especially to the youths who are joining us virtually. Maayong hapon, good afternoon sa ating lahat. The topic that was assigned to me was about the do's and don'ts for public officials, employees, and employees during election. We are referring to the May 9 national and local elections. So, first of all, let me cite that fair elections are the foundation of our democracy. When the legitimacy of elections is being compromised or is being corrupted, necessarily democracy is also threatened. Now, what are the do's? What are the allowable acts for our public officials and employees during election or election period for that matter? Next slide. Next slide. First is to take part in an election by voting. It is an exercise of our right of suffrage as provided for under the Constitution. And it is the exact time where we will be able to vote for our selected candidates, whether that's national or local. It is our power to choose whom among the candidates are best suited in as far as our perspective is concerned. Secondly, to express views on current political problems or issues. Ano kaya ito? Ano kaya itong mga political problems at hand that an individual might be able to express? It was cited by Attorney Alisa kanina about political dynasty, and probably the political parties at hand which are present in our respective jurisdictions. And probably also one of the issues that may be raised by an individual is in the light of COVID-19, ano kaya mangyayari dito sa mga political activities that will be conducted by the different political parties? Remember, we are still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, although we are most of the local governments are now under alert level 1 or level 2. Thirdly, we are allowed, an individual is allowed to mention the names of the candidates for public office whom he or she supports. So kung gusto mo si Juan de la Cruz, pwede mo i-mention yan. I am voting for Juan de la Cruz for public office in this coming May 9 elections. Actually, all these things are being grounded under the Omnibus Election, under Republic Act 7160, or otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991, particularly Section 93. Section 93 of the Local Government Code refers to partisan political activity. So it just no local official or employee in the career civil service shall engage directly or indirectly in any partisan political activity or take part in any election, initiative, referendum, plebiscite, or recall, except to vote, nor shall he use his official authority or influence to cause the performance of any political activity by any person or body. He may also, however, express his views on current issues or mention the names of certain candidates for public office whom he supports. So, yan, grounded yan sa Section 93 of the Local Government Code of 1991. Next. Public expressions, opinions, or discussions of probable issues in the forthcoming election or an attributes of or criticisms against probable candidates to be nominated in the forthcoming political party convention. So An individual is allowed to express his opinions or share some issues, no, about the forthcoming election against any candidate, pero this has reference to the political party convention. As we all know, lahat ng mga political parties tapos na yung convention nila as early as last year. Ito, social media functions such as liking, commenting, sharing, reposting, or following a candidate or party's account is allowed, no? Those yan. Unless these are resorted as a means to solicit support for or against any candidate or party during the campaign period. So, allowed yung sharing at saka yung liking, maliban na lang kung it has something to do to solicit support para sa paborito mong kandidato or against sa hindi mo napuso ang kandidato. This is being grounded under the Civil Service saka COMELEC Joint Circular number 001 series of 2016. So 2016 pa ito na issue once Joint Circular ng Civil Service at saka COMELEC. Ito, vote buying and vote stealing. Pag sinasabi kasi nating vote buying, there are two elements, no? Vote buying at saka vote stealing. So may nagbenta, may nagbibili, no? So nasabi dito, to give, direct na pagbigay, to offer, I'm offering you 5,000 in exchange of your vote for my candidate, no? Or promise, siguro pag nanalo yung kandidato ko, kalahati mo na yung bigay ko ngayon, pag nanalo yon, another kalahati yung matanggap mo. So that's vote buying, no? Promise money or anything of value. You give or promise any office employment, any office or employment. So pag manalo ako, i-employ kita. So that's a form of vote buying. Franchise or grant, di ba? Franchising. Ano ba yung mga franchise na available sa local governments? If we are talking about the local government unit, yung franchise ng mga tricycle, no? Franchise ng yan lang yung devolved function sa local government. So make or offer to make an expenditure. So gusto mo ako na yung mag-sponsor sa sa ticket mo, Huwag tagang Maynila, punta kang Cebu. So ako yung maging sponsor. Basta botohan mo lang yung kandidato ko. So cause an expenditure to be made to any person, any individual, an association or isang grupo o isang korporasyon, entity or isang community in order to induce. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng induce? That refers to persuade or to influence for the public in general to vote for or against any candidate or withhold his vote in the election or to vote for or against any aspirant for nomination or choice of a candidate in a convention for similar selection process of a political party. So may mga process kasi yung mga political party before the conduct of the convention proper, may mga offers na ginagawa sa mga kandidato. So yan yung sa vote buying. So in just yung vote buying at saka vote stealing is to solicit or receive directly or indirectly, pagka pwede lang through channels kaya or through emissaries, any expenditure or promise of any office or employment, public or private, for any of the foregoing considerations as being articulated under Section 261, Paragraph A of the Omnibus Election Code. Coercion. Ito, kung may mga boss tayo na gusto nila na kung ano yung iboboto natin, yun din iboboto ng mga subordinate natin, no? To coerce, to intimidate, or to compel in any manner of influence directly or indirectly. Yung mga subordinate natin to aid, to campaign, to vote for or against any candidate or any aspirant for the nomination or selection process, selection of candidates. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng to coerce or coercion for that matter? That is to persuade an unwilling person by using force or threats. No? So, unwilling yung tao, ipipersuade mo. Secondly, kung under sa coercion of subordinate, i-dismiss mo yung tao or i-threaten mo to dismiss kung hindi siya sunod sa kagustuhan mo na iboto yung gusto niyang kandidato. To punish or to threatens to punish by reducing compensation o siguro i-demote. Sige, ilipat kita o baka i-suspend kita. In other words, may mga sanctions, no? Separation, excommunication, ejectment, because nag-disobey sa boss niya. So, for not complying any acts ordered to vote for or against any candidate for the nomination of or selection of candidates. No, this is again Section 261G of Omnibus Election Code. Third is yung appointment of new employees, creation of new position, promotion, or giving salary increases within the 45 days prior to local election. Yung election natin will be on May 9, so yung 45 days before, that's March 25. So bawal mag-hire ng bagong empleyado, whether provisional, temporary, or casual, or creates and fills any position. Maliban lang dito kung may exception yung isang agency coming from COMELEC, no? Especially if the worker to be hired shall be under the contract of service and job order for services are neither covered by the Civil Service Commission, civil service laws, rules, and regulations, nor considered as government service, as articulated under Section 7 COMELEC Resolution 10742. And thirdly, there is an urgency for the new employee to be appointed. So kung may isang government official na mag-promote or magbigay ng increase of salary or remuneration to any government official or employee, including those in government-owned and controlled corporation, ito ay pinagbawal ng batas. Fourth, intervention of public officers and employees, no? Any officer or employee in the civil service, except those who holding political offices, no? Yung mga elected positions, or any officer, employee, or member of the armed forces, or yung kasamahan natin sa Philippine National Police, no? Special Forces, Home Defense Forces, Barangay Self-Defense Units, and other paramilitary units, directly or indirectly intervenes in any election campaign or engages in any partisan political activity, no, except to vote or to preserve public order if he is a peace officer. So bawal yung intervention ng mga kasamahan natin, no, in the civil service, except yung sa political offices lang. Especially yung sa armed forces at saka sa Philippine National Police. Okay, next. Electioneering. Ano naman ang electioneering and partisan political activity? This refers to any act designed to promote the election or defeat of a particular candidate or party or parties to public office. Ano naman ang mga example ng mga prohibited activities? to form any organization or clubs or committees or any other groups of person for purposes of soliciting na humihikayat ng boto or any undertaking, any campaign for or against any candidate or party. No? Yung pagporma ng isang organisasyon. Second is to hold a political caucus, no? Mag-conduct ng mga conferences, conduct ng mga meetings, rallies, mga motorcade, parades, or any similar nga activity for the purpose na makahikayat ng boto sa taong bayan. Tapos, thirdly, is yung to make speeches, yung mga announcement, mga komentaryo, or magpa-interview para sa yung napupusuang mga kandidato or against sa mga kandidato na hindi mo napusuan. Then, you have to publish, display or distribute campaign literature or materials that will support or oppose the election of any candidate. That's pinagbawal pa rin yan. Then, directly or indirectly solicit votes, pledges or support for or against a candidate or a party. This is provided for under the Civil Service Resolution dated March 29, 2016. Matagal na ito, since 2016 pa. Next. So, Civil Service MC number 30, sightings, Civil Service Memorandum number 40, series of 1998, adds the following acts to the list of the acts constituting election campaign for or partisan political activity. Parang amendment ito or may mga supplemental na mga provisions, no? Kaya na-cite yung 1998 doon sa MC 2009. Being a delegate to any political convention or any member of any political committee or directorate or an officer of any political club or other similar political organizations. So, hindi pwede yung maging delegate ka to any political convention. Kasi in the first place, especially yung mga career, hindi naman dapat i-exercise natin yung political neutrality. Receiving any contributions for political purposes either directly or indirectly. Bawal tumanggap ng contribution for political purposes. No? Thirdly, becoming publicly identified with the success or failure of any candidate. No? Para bang halos lahat ng mga lakad ng isang kandidato, andyan ka kasama, andyan ka sa tagiliran o kaya sa likod, no? Whether nanalo yan or natalo, bawal pa rin yan. Next slide. This is being cited under CEC MC number 9 as early as 1992. No? Ano ba yung mga prohibited acts? Wearing of t-shirts or pins, caps, yung sombrero, or any other similar election paraphernalia na nagtataglay ng mga pangalan ng mga kandidato or yung political party, except as authorized by COMELEC. Then, being a watcher or for a political party or a candidate during the election. So, hindi ka pwedeng magiging watcher pag andyan ka sa pag-government na employee ka. Consistent presence in the political rallies, caucuses, and continuous companionship with certain political candidate, no, or political party in the same activities. So, sinasabi ko to kanina na para bang andyan ka palagi pag may mga political rally, yung napipili mo kandidato, no? So, especially yung continuous companionship, no? Ito yung keyword dito, continuous companionship. Giving personal, financial or other monetary contribution, supplies, equipment and materials for the benefit of a candidate or a political party. So kung magbigay ka ng tulong, whether that's personal, financial, or other monetary consideration, bawal pa rin yan. And ito, utilizing government resources, such as the personnel, yung mga job order, yung mga contract of service, yung oras nila, saka properties ng opisina para sa political purposes. Next slide. May mga jurisprudence kasing naipalabas din, no? Distributing of handbills or leaflets. Bawal din yan. Attendance at political meetings and caucuses. So, kung mag-meeting yung isang partido, andun ka, bawal yan. Kasi on the first place, hindi ka naman kasama doon sa political party na yon. And the distribution of letters indicating intention to run for public office. Ito yung summary ng electioneering at saka partisan political activity, no? Covered persons, members of the civil service in all branches, subdivisions, instrumentalities and agencies of the Philippine government, including GOCC, government-owned and controlled corporations with the result charters, and the ECOC, the state universities and colleges, whether their appointments are permanent, temporary, contractual, or even casual. So, kasama sila. Career offices holding political offices in an acting or official capacity. And then lastly, yung uniform and active members of the armed forces of the Philippines at saka the Philippine National Police. Sino ba yung excluded dito sa electioneering and partisan political activity? Of course, the President and the Vice President, no? The cabinet members, the other elective public officials except the barangay officials. So meaning to say our municipal, city at saka provincial officials allowed sila. Pero yung barangay officials hindi pwede. Personal and confidential staff of the above mentioned officials. We have to understand na may mga personal saka confidential employees na na-hire yung mga local chief executives na kung saan yung term of office nila is tinatawag nating coterminos. So kasama sila sa excluded. And of course, the members of the reserve corps of the armed forces of the Philippines. So, okay, next slide. Prohibition against release, disbursement, or expenditure of public funds. So, any public official or employee, including barangay officials and those of government owned and controlled corporation or GOCCs and their subsidiaries who during 45 days before a regular election releases, disburses, or expends any public funds for any and all kinds of public works except the following. So may exemption. Remember, ang pinaka-reference natin nito is March 25, yung mag-start ng 45 days. Maintenance of existing or completed public works project, provided that not more than the average number of laborers or employees already employed during the last 6 months period immediately prior to the beginning of the 45-day period before election shall be permitted to work during such time. Provided further that no additional laborers shall be employed for maintenance work within the said period of 45 days. So kung halimbawa yung average number of laborers sabihin natin 10, yun lang din yung continue. Hindi pwedeng magiging 15 or 20. So yung usapan nito is yung average number of employees for the last 6 months. So para walang bahid ng confusion. Then the work undertaken by contract or public bidding held or by non-negotiated contract awarded prior to the 45-day period before the election. In other words, the notice of award has been issued prior to, in this particular case, March 25. So provided that the work for purposes of the section undertaken under the so-called takay or package system shall not be considered as work by contract. May mga term kasi na ginagamit yung mga takay or package system that's being undertaken as part of the work in the local government. But it's not considered as part of under contract. Then payment for the usual cost of preparation of works, working drawings, especially sa mga engineers natin or sa mga architects, no? Specifications, bills of materials, estimates, and other procedural preparatory procedures preparatory to the actual construction, including the purchase of materials and equipment, and all incidental expenses for wages of watchmen and other laborers employed for such work in the central office and field storehouses before the beginning of such period, provided that the number of such laborers shall not be increased. Just like atong sa previous na provision, there is no increase in the number of laborers over the number of hired when the project were commenced. And emergency work necessitated by the occurrence of a public calamity, but such work shall be limited to the restoration of the damaged facility. This usually happens when there is a typhoon or a storm surge or any disaster that occurs in the locality. Ito naman yung the Ministry of Social Services. And any other office or ministries of the government performing functions to the said ministry, maliban na lamang sa salaries o personnel nila. So and other routine and normal expenses for the expenses as the commission may authorize, no? Yung commission na pinag-usapan nito is yung COMELEC pa rin. After due notice and hearing. Of course, there's prior communication prior to the grant of the expenses being covered by the MSSD. Then the Ministry of Human Settlements and any other offices or in any other ministry of the government performing functions similar to said ministry except salary. So parehas din, no? Salary for such other necessary administrative or other expenses as the commission may authorize after due notice and hearing. Next slide. Ito, number 6, no? Prohibition against construction of public works, delivery of materials for public works, and issuance of treasury warrants and similar devices. So again, yung pinaka-reference natin dito is yung 45 days preceding the regular election. So any person who undertakes construction of public works except for projects or works exempted in the preceding paragraph. May mga exemption kasi dito. And secondly, issues, uses or avails of treasury warrants or any device undertaking future delivery of money, goods or other things of value chargeable against public funds. So yun yung mga prohibitions, no? Ito, suspension of elected provincial, city, municipal or barangay officer. So the provision of the law, to the contrary, notwithstanding during election period, any public official who suspends without prior approval of the commission any elective provincial, city, municipal, or barangay officers, unless said suspension will be for purposes of applying the anti-graft and corrupt practices in relation to the suspension and removal of elective officials, in which case the provision of this section shall be inapplicable. So usually it's the DILG that's being requested by the ombudsman to implement suspension orders, whether that's barangay, municipal, city, or the provincial. So under this particular provision, it is not allowed, no, unless there is prior approval of the Commission on Elections, and also unless the suspension will be for purposes of applying the anti-graft and corrupt practices. Usually mga criminal, may mga criminal liabilities kasi dito. There are instances na may suspension coming from the Sandigang Bayan na pwede i-implement. Of course, with due reference with the approval coming from the Commission on Election. And yun lang siguro. Maraming salamat. Stay safe always.
All right. Thank you also, ARD Donald Seronay, for that discussion. Can we give ARD Seronay a virtual round of applause from the participant? Andyan pa ba tayo? React please if you are still there. Okay pa ba tayo? So the discussion or the topic of ARD Seronay simply reminds us, most especially those in public service, to be a responsible government officials and employees at all times, especially in this time of elections. So if you have queries, again, queries, clarifications, or comments, kindly type in the chat box and we will tackle them in the open forum. Okay pa ba ta? Okay pa ba tayo? React please. You can type something in the chat box. Type 1 if okay pa ta? Are you still there? Type 1 from the participant. Okay. As we proceed, our third and last speaker graduated cum laude at Mindanao State University, IIT in 2000 with a degree Bachelor of Arts in English. She finished her Bachelor of Laws at Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan in 2006. She also took some further studies and finished the Public Management Development Program for Senior Executives of the Development Academy of the Philippines, or DAP, in 2019, and the Masters in Public Administration at Southwestern University, Cebu in 2021. She is also a licensed real estate broker and a civil service professional and sub-professional eligible. She had undergone various trainings and seminars here and abroad. She had previous works at the provincial government of Agusan del Sur and had some voluntary work engagement from various LGUs and agencies of Caraga region. At the Commission of Elections Caraga region, she became the regional attorney in July 2008. Then she became the provincial election supervisor 3 in November 2009. At present, she is the assistant regional election director of Comelec Caraga region. To discuss Comelec resolutions pertaining to the elections, please help me welcome Attorney Geraldine C. Samson.
Good afternoon again. May I be allowed to share my screen?
Yes, po, ma'am.
Para makontrol lang nako ang next.
Yes, po, ma'am.
Thank you. So I was told that I will be giving a lecture or a talk on the voting process, selected provisions or pertinent provisions in Resolution 10727 for our new voters after being an SK. So I'd like to start with, a while ago, I posed the question on why must we care about elections? What is the significance of that? Well, I pointed out, I recited this particular provision in the Philippine Constitution, which says that the Philippines is a democratic and republican state. Sovereignty resides in the people, and all government authority emanates from them. Since, as emphasized earlier, democracy and elections are intertwined, the Article 9C of the Philippine Constitution mandates the Commission on Elections to lead electoral activities that includes plebiscite, initiative, referendum, and recall. So, but collectively, we call these processes as election processes. So the legal base on the next question is, since we've answered already why must we have the elections, the next question is, why May always? Why not other month? Because RA 7166, which was approved in last November 26, 1995, mandates that the synchronized election will be every second Monday of May, starting 1995. So the next elections was 1998, then 2001, 2004, and then so on and so forth. So for BARM, RA 10153 requires that the BARM elections will be in sync with the elections in non-BARM areas. So that's the reason why. That's why we have our elections every second Monday of May. Now, when we speak of elections, the common misconception is that it covers election day only, when we vote. But when we speak of election, there are actually 3 stages involved. The first one is the pre-election period, the election period, and the post-election period. So, what is this pre-election period? Anong meron dito? Now, the pre-election period actually is all about the registration process. Basically, it's about the registration process. So, anong meron dito? Okay. Registration, when we say registration, hindi ka pa nakapag-register sa COMELEC, meaning you don't have any record yet in COMELEC. So that's new registration. When we say transfer, meaning to say, excuse. When we speak of transfer, that means you have a registration record. Like for example, you were originally registered in Buena Vista, Agusan del Norte, and you want to transfer. You have your registration record transferred to Butuan City or the other way around. Or it could be the transfer is from one province to another, one region to another. So it could be your original registration is in Manila and you want to have your registration transferred to Butuan City and vice versa. So we also have the correction of entries, like in your when you registered at our office, there are certain data na mali. Like example, ang spelling ng pangalan, some are yung mga live-in partners, ginamit na nila yung apelyado ng lalaki. Tapos hindi nila magamit legally. So yun pwede kang magpa-correct. Meron ding mga court orders na kailangan i-sundin. So pwede kang magpa-correct. So everything, lahat ng kailangan mong ipa-correct, pwede yan during registration period. Meron tayong application. Kasi by law, if you were not able to vote in 2 consecutive, magkasunod na election yon. So ibig sabihin, when you did not vote in the 2018 barangay elections and in the 2019 local elections, tapos hindi ka nagpunta sa COMELEC to verify, you will be surprised na deactivated ka. When we say deactivated, hindi nawala yung record mo. It's just that we archived your record because for 2 consecutive elections, hindi ka nakaboto. So anong gagawin natin to be able to vote if you knew that na wala ka na sa listahan because hindi ka na nakaboto in the prior consecutive elections? You will just have to go to any local COMELEC office or where you are a resident. And then you file for the reactivation of your registration record. So from the archive, i-move na naman natin siya sa active files. And then for the senior citizens, those people na kailangan ng assistance or registered voters na kailangan ng assistance panahon ng pagboto, pwede rin silang pumunta sa local COMELEC natin and then magpa-update ng records. So all this will be done during registration period. When is the registration period? That is a month after the end of election period. So our registration period by law will resume on July 1 until such time na mag-file na naman tayo ng certificate of candidacy, papasok na naman ang election period for the next elections. So the conception na wala kaming ginagawa after elections, unfortunately, ito ang ginagawa namin araw-araw. And that by mandate, by law, yung registration is including Saturdays and holidays. So huwag sayangin yung Saturdays and holidays once mag-resume ang ating registration period. Okay, who may register? Basic ito. Filipino citizen, not yet a registered voter of course. Kung registered ka na, pagpipilian mo na lang yung transfer, reactivation, correction, whatever. At least 18 years of age on or before election day. So for these elections, nag-end ang ating registration period last October 30, 2022, and the reckoning date of the age requirement is May 9 for these elections. And you must be a resident in the country for at least 1 year kung kakandidato ka, but 6 months lang kung botante lang ang purpose mo. And then you are not disqualified by law. Now this qualification, not disqualified by law. Bakit? Ano ba ang mga grounds na pwede kang ma-disqualify by law? So dito tayo. You are sentenced by final judgment to suffer imprisonment for not less than 1 year. Kasama dito yung mga election offenses kasi 6 years po ang penalty ng election offenses. And then you are not adjudged by final judgment. Ibig sabihin, wala nang motion for reconsideration. Final na talaga. For crimes involving disloyalty to the duly constituted government like rebellion, insurrection, and related crimes. And you are also declared by competent authority as insane. So kung nagkaroon ka ng penalty na imprisonment after service of sentence, 5 years after service of sentence, pwedeng ma-reacquire mo yung right of suffrage mo. Okay, so paano ba yung registration? Qualified ka, based dun sa pinakita ko sa inyo, you are qualified to register. So pupunta ka ng COMELEC office, kukunan ng biometrics. The biometrics includes the picture, signature, thumb mark. So yun lahat yun. Bakit kailangan yun? Di ba yun siya, is that not violative of the data privacy? Because those biometrics are taken because the list that our members of the electoral board will be using will actually have your faces, your signature. Bakit siya? Ito yung itsura ng Election Day Computerized Voters List. The general rule is that ang makakaboto, those who will be allowed to vote, are those whose names are in the EDCVL. So kung wala ang pangalan mo dito, general rule, hindi ka pwedeng bumoto. Ano bang meron? Kaya kinuha ang biometrics mo if nakita mo, for example, sa pangalan ng ating number 1 registered voter, si Mr. Abad, nandyan yung picture niya, nandyan yung perma niya. That is the biometric signature. Tapos, at the last column, may dalawa doon corresponding sa name niya. Once naka-vote ka, you will be asked to sign dyan at the space above, and then below that is the signature of the chairman. Kasi the chairman will be attesting na ikaw yung pumirma at bumoto ka. Yun siya ang essence nun. So, paano ka ba makapag-reactivate? As I've mentioned earlier, registration is not just about new voters. Pwede yung old, hindi na-deactivate, so magpa-reactivate ka. So, ito yung mga grounds na-discuss ko na din earlier. So kung nawala na, pwede kang after 5 years, pwede kang magpa-reactivate. Those who fail to vote twice, so magpa-reactivate ka. Because of court order, alisin ka sa listahan because na-question yung residency mo and then na-prove na hindi ka talaga doon. So may order ang court. But then after a while, resident ka na talaga doon, you can have your registration reactivated. Those who lost their Philippine citizenship and then reacquired, pwede kang madi-deactivate ka. But if you regain your citizenship and then you will have your registration reactivated, and then yung mga nasa local absentee voting. Next is, okay. So tapos na tayo doon sa registration period. After registration period, mayroon tayong tinatawag na campaign period. Pasok ito doon sa election period. So yung, as I've mentioned earlier, when we speak of election, it's not just about the day we vote, the voting itself. So kasama doon lahat ng preliminaries. And for during election period, the other activities that the Commission on Election leads is the campaign period. Now, bakit may campaign period? Because this is the period wherein the candidates lay down their platforms to the voters, and then the voters will be informed of their platforms, and your vote will be based on those platforms. That is voting wisely. So for our national candidates, the campaign period started last February 8, and then for the local candidates, it started last March 25, and then the campaign period will be only until May 7, meaning to say, wala nang mga ngampanya at bawal mangampanya on May 7 and on starting May 8. Okay, until May 7 yung campaign period. Meaning also, hindi na pwedeng mangampanya on election day, lalong-lalo na sa loob ng voting center o polling place. So kailan ang election natin? Our election will be on May 9 from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Question. What if meron pang nakapila at 7 p.m.? Hindi na ba sila makaboto? Our resolution says that requires that those voters lining up, hindi yung nandun lahat nakakumpol, lining up in front of the polling place. When we speak of polling place, this is the classroom, the precinct. When we speak of voting center, this is the school itself. So those lining up 30 meters in front of the polling place, doon mismo sa pinto niya. The names of these voters will be listed down, and then they will be called thrice. Tatlong beses lang. After calling them out thrice, kung wala, makakaboto ka pa rin, but doon na tayo sa next election. So, kung nalista ka na at 7 p.m., do not leave kasi walang pwedeng maging rason para or excuse na boboto ka pa rin kahit when you were called 3 times, wala ka doon. The good news as against the previous elections, our voting hours ngayon 7 p.m. dati hanggang 5 p.m. lang, but there is an extension of 2 hours. There will be an extension of 2 hours because of the pandemic, the protocols that we are required to follow. And then our registered voters before per clustered precinct is 1,000. Ngayon 800 voters na lang. Hopefully matapos tayo on time. I'm asking everybody, please announce and please disseminate. Wag yung almost to close na yung voting hours natin. Be at the precincts, your polling places as early as possible. We will be open for all voters at 6 a.m. Okay. Next is who can vote? As I have mentioned earlier, ang makakaboto is yung mga nasa listahan namin. This is the EDCVL. And then I repeatedly said that generally those in the EDCVL. Why? Kasi meron tayong mga nasa EDCVL pero hindi siya pwedeng bumoto because naka-highlight siya, naka-crossed out siya. Bakit ka ma-highlight or ma-cross out? Tawag namin dito ma-annotate. Merong annotation doon sa pangalan mo sa EDCVL. Number 1, APIS. Now, the perennial problem that we were facing prior to the automation law is yung flying voters. Kasi there is no way of checking na mabilisan na nagpa-register ka pala sa Manila in January and then umuwi ka sa Butuan in February or other months and then nagpa-register ka ulit. But because of the automation law, meron kaming AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System, wherein after a quarter, January to March, lahat ng nag-apply. When you went to the any local COMELEC office and then you filled in some papers, applicant ka pa lang nun. After 3 months, for each quarter, magkakaroon ng ERB hearing or Election Registration Board hearing chaired by the election officer, and the 2 members is our district supervisor, the district supervisor, and the local civil registrar registry. Bakit? Now, they will be acting on all your applications to be included in the list of voters. Merong mga oppositions, possibly. Ito yung mga may nag-oppose sa application ninyo kasi hindi ka totoong registered voter dyan or kaya may disqualification ka. So, during this period, so it could be last January, nandun ka sa Manila, tapos umuwi ka ng Butuan February. In Manila, you use the name Juan de la Cruz. In Butuan, you use the name Pedro. and then you use different birth dates for whatever reason you were able to present a different certificate of live birth, other proofs na yun ang birthday mo. And then after that quarter in Manila, we have that system wherein ipapasok ay isasalong lahat ng nag-apply. Kahit iba ang ginamit mo na pangalan, edad, parents, but your biometrics, your thumbprint, your signature, and your face, makikita doon na this Pedro and Juan are actually the same person. So you will be deleted in one record and your name will be retained in one record only. So masusurprise ka, akala mo lusot ka na, but actually hindi. So you will be annotated there. Merong annotation doon na hindi ka makaboto dahil sa APs. Meron ding akala mo makalusot ka na kasi nag-apply ka ng transfer in Manila from Butuan during the last week of registration, hindi na yun makikita ng COMELEC. So na-print na namin yung EDCBL, nakatanggap kami ng notice from Manila that you actually applied for transfer there in Manila. So natanggap ng Butuan City, hindi ka na makakaboto dito sa Butuan kasi ang pangalan mo andun na sa Maynila. And then the local civil registry also furnishes us with certified list of those of names na namatay na based sa record nila. Pwede rin na yung kamag-anak ang nag-report na itong si Juan de la Cruz ay patay na. So meron ding annotation doon na hindi ka na makaboto dahil hindi na ito makaboto ang pangalan na to dahil patay na. Administrative inclusion, ibig sabihin merong nagkaroong administrative order na ipasok ka ulit sa system dahil may inadvertently na delete ka. And then meron din court order na i-include ka or i-exclude ka. When the order is inclusion, isusulat yung pangalan mo sa dulo. When the order is exclusion, i-highlight yung pangalan mo and then lagyan doon ng annotation na excluded. So as I've said, generally, those names na nasa EDCVL makakaboto except kung annotated ka for the reasons that I discussed. Okay, next is, so ito yung tanong. Do I need a voter's ID to be able to vote? And do I need any ID kung wala akong voter's ID to be able to vote? On the first two questions, they're on your screen. You don't need a voter's ID to be able to vote. If you notice doon sa sa EDCBL natin, nandun yung mukha mo. So paglapit mo ngayon kay chairman, sinabi mo, ako si Geraldine Samson, ang number ko dyan sa listahan mo is number 79. And then, so tingnan. Pagtingin ngayon ni chairman sa'yo, kung yung mukha mo nandun sa, ito yung mukha na nasa EDCBL, there will be no question about your identity. You don't need to present proof or voter's ID or any ID for that matter na ikaw talaga si Geraldine Samson. However, kung may nag-challenge sa identity mo, sino yon? It could be the watchers. One of the main qualifications ng watcher is that you must be a registered voter dun sa presinto na nag-serve ka na watcher. Bakit? Kasi the premise is that kilala mo lahat ng botante dun mismo sa presinto na yon. So ibig sabihin kung sinabi ko dun sa chairman na ako si Geraldine Samson, but itong kapitbahay ko na watcher, kilala ako, hindi. Yan yung twin ni Geraldine Samson. So o kaya hindi, ito yung nakababatang kapatid or nakakanta ng kapatid ni Geraldine Samson. So you will be asked to present proof of identity. What will be this proof of identity? Doesn't have to be a voter's ID or COMELEC ID. Any government issued ID will do. On the question of whether kailangan ng vaccination card, hindi. Because our general rule is to enfranchise everybody. And then, kailangan ba ng negative result ng COVID testing? Hindi rin, kasi the general rule is to enfranchise everybody. In fact, the Commission on Elections introduced an innovation or mechanism wherein those with COVID-19 symptoms will still be able to vote by putting up isolation polling places, one isolation polling place in each voting center. Merong mga protocols na kailangan sundin. But even if you have symptoms, you will be able to vote without the necessity of presenting a negative result for COVID testing. So paano mo malalaman na yung pangalan mo nasa listahan? Well, dun sa sinabi ko lahat ng legal reasons for deactivation or annotation, i-highlight ang pangalan mo, wala ka dun. Lahat ng COMELEC offices mag-post ng precinct level, posted computerized voters list sa lahat ng aming ng barangays at ng bulletin board ng COMELEC offices. You can check. Meron din kaming i-distribute na voters information sheet. Meron din tayong precinct finder at merong PCVL. So I will be presenting to you the voters information sheet. Ginawa ko ng example ang sarili ko. So ito yung itsura ng voters information sheets ninyo. In some areas nakapag-distribute na kami. In some areas ongoing pa. Okay, the first page of the voters information sheet is ito yon. Makikita nyo sa screen yun. Nandyan yung pangalan, yung address, yung precinct number ko. Example lang yon. Yung presinto ko, Villa Cananga Elementary School. So doon ako pupunta and then yun ang presinto ko. So malalaman mo na kung saan ka pupunta. The second page is the front face, the face of the official ballot, and then the third is the back portion of the official ballot. The fourth is the list of candidates na pagpipilian mo. The fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Tapos yung last page is yung mga IATF protocols na kailangan sundin. Now, because the voters information sheets contains the names, the official list of candidates na pagpipilian mo, you are allowed to bring this VIS inside the polling place. Pwedeng i-highlight mo na yung gusto mong botohan para madali mo na lang makita because the placement of the names of the candidates in the VIS, pareho yon sa placement ng names doon sa official ballot. So para hindi ka na matagalan, pwede mo nang i-highlight dyan sa VIS at bitbitin mo sa loob ng presinto on election day. Now, I mentioned earlier, precinct finder. Pwede ka rin pumunta sa voterverifier.comelec.gov.ph/voter_precinct. Now, you click that, puntahan mo yan, meron kang, sundan mo lang. Yung mga SK natin, wala namang new generation ngayon na hindi alam pa ang computers or kaya cellphones, ma-access mo ito. Sorry. So makikita mo, you will be guided, and on step 5, diyan mo makikita ang pangalan, address, yung precinct mo, and then yung status ng registration mo kung active ka o hindi. Now, I tried to access online this precinct finder. If nakita nyo dyan sa last portion, deactivated ako. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already have questions on the reliability of our precinct finder, so unahan ko na kayo. I gave myself as an example because if hanapin ko ang pangalan ko sa precinct finder, deactivated talaga ako. Because for the past elections, because na-assign ako sa ibang lugar and I was not able to vote, na-deactivate ako, I filed for a reactivation. Unfortunately, our precinct finder, kasi kailangan, naka-ano ito siya, in coordination with the DICT, hindi siya updated. So meron sa inyong hindi nyo nakita ang pangalan ninyo dyan, but sigurado kayong registered voter kayo, just please call or visit our local offices for verification purposes. Makikita nyo pa rin yung pangalan nyo. Active pa rin ako based sa record ng Sibagat Agusan del Sur. So yun yung issue. What could be other issues na hindi makikita? Meron ding gumamit ng precinct finder pero record not found. Dahil merong mga nagkamali sa encoding o kaya during sa registration, nabaligtad yung pangalan ng nanay at tatay, family name ng nanay at tatay. I-try nyo rin yung walang space ang junior o kaya may period o walang period. So lahat ng means, itatry nyo yon kasi those are the possible reasons na walang makikitang record ninyo dyan sa precinct finder. In case of doubt, you can always visit our offices. We are open from Monday to Friday to Saturdays From Monday to Friday, open kami hanggang 8 o'clock in the evening. And then on Saturdays and holidays, open kami hanggang 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Next is, ano ito? Okay. Computerized voters list precinct level. Ito yung itsura niya. Ito yung pinopost namin sa mga barangay halls, sa bulletin boards ng aming offices at ng municipal hall. Anong meron dito? Yung first na naka-box is yan yung province, city, municipality, and then barangay. Yung second na naka-box, ito yon. This is the precinct number of these names so enumerated here. So lahat sila, ang precinct number nila is 67A. Example lang ito. And then the third that I in red box is C. Ang ibig sabihin yan, doon sa record, di ba sinabi ko earlier na pwede kayong magpa-update ng record ninyo. Dahil senior citizen na kayo, it might be na kailangan nyo ng assistance sa voting. So pumunta kayo ng office namin during registration period, sabihin nyo, I will have my records updated to indicate therein that I am now a senior citizen and I will be needing assistance during voting on election day. Pwede rin na illiterate. During sa registration, nahiya kang aminin. Tapos naisip mo na kailangan mong aminin dahil kailangan mo ng assistance on election day. So you just visit our office. Meron ding with disability. Pwede rin on the day that nag-register ka, wala ka namang disability. But for some reason after that day, na disgrasya or ano man yung reason, so you are now with disability, punta ka lang ulit sa office namin during registration period and your records will indicate that you are a person with disability, you will be requiring assistance on election day. So that is the phase of the PCVL. This list will also be handled by the DESO, the Department of Education supervising officials sitting at the gate doon sa Voters Assistance Desk on election day. Pwede rin kayo doon mag-inquire. So ito yung magiging itsura ng ating voting center. By reason of the protocols that we are to follow relative to the pandemic. So lahat, if the school or the voting center, maraming gates, isarado ang lahat, dalawa lang ang bukas. If isa lang ang gate, hatiin ito sa dalawa. This will be divided into two. One will serve as exit, while one will serve as entrance. Now, at the entrance, magkakaroon tayo ng personnel from the DOH or yung ating PPCRV and other accredited citizens arm na meron silang hawak na thermal gun. Doon, o kaya yung mga may stand na thermal scanner. Lahat ng papasok ng voting centers natin will have to be checked dun sa temperature. Kapag 37.5 ang temperature mo, you will be asked to rest. Maybe mainit lang dahil summer ito. But after a while, kung the same pa rin ang temperature mo, pupunta ka sa isolation polling place. Kung bumaba ang temperature mo, you will be asked to go to your regular polling place or precinct. Now, there will be special handling of voters with COVID symptoms. Yun yung sinabi ko kanina na isolation polling place. Doon sila boboto. Naturally, hindi sila makapunta doon sa precinct nila. Yung mag-assist sa kanila is yung support staff ng isolation polling place. Kukunin ang balota niya doon mismo sa chairman and then ibibigay niya doon sa safety protocol officer na naka-PPE doon mismo sa isolation polling place. Itong si support staff, magiging liaison lang siya ng regular precinct mo at saka ni IPP. Hindi rin siya papasok sa IPP. At the gate, kapag nakapag-register ka ng 37.5 na temperature, kukunan ka ng picture sa cellphone ng safety protocol officer, yung medical personnel there. Bakit? Kasi yung picture na yan, ang dadalhin niya doon kay chairman para ipakita na ito ngayon si voter andyan, but may COVID symptom siya. Tingnan mo sa EDCVL kung ito ba talaga si Juan de la Cruz or si Juana. Kung siya talaga, ibibigyan ni chairman yung balota sa kanya, ipasok sa isang box. And then, ilalagay ni chairman doon. Di ba earlier I presented an EDCVL after being able to vote, pipirma ka doon. But this time around, hindi ka makakapirma kasi hindi ka makapasok sa polling place mo. Si chairman ang maglagay doon ng voted in IPP. lagyan ni chairman yun. And then you will be asked to sign two forms, the consent form and the waiver. The consent form is allowing the chairman to do that, i-annotate doon na voted in IPP. And then the waiver is magkakaroon ng waiver na hindi ka makaka-personally fed ng balot mo doon sa machine. Bakit? Kasi because of the protocol, because of the pandemic, kailangan mo ng lahat ng boboto sa IPP, hindi ipapasok yung balota niya doon sa polling place niya kasi walang makina sa IPP. Kasi it could be na in one voting center, 5 yung polling place. So lahat ng botante na may COVID symptoms sa 5 polling place, doon lang sila lahat sa IPP. Now, wala silang machine doon after 7 o'clock. Pag close na ng voting sa lahat ng presinto, and then tapos na lahat doon sa regular precincts, saka ipapasok or ife-fed sa BCM yung lahat ng balota ninyo, yun nila, ng IP, ng mga voters na may COVID symptoms. Sa ngayon, si chairman na o kaya si poll clerk ang magpapasok doon sa VCM, but that will be after voting hours. So kaya may waiver at consent form. So na-introduce na natin yung voting center, paano ka ba papasok? So papasok na tayo sa polling place mo assuming na wala kang COVID symptom. So malapit sa pinto, andyan yung members ng electoral board, andyan yung makina, and then you will be able to vote. So I will now introduce you to the official ballot. Ano ba ang itsura ng balota natin? Ano ba ang itsura ng balota natin? So, ito yung sa gilid, palibot ito ng ating official ballot. That is the timing marks. In our voters education, our roadshow, ini-emphasize talaga namin repeatedly na kahit anong mangyari, wag na wag talagang masira ang timing marks. Kasi kapag nasira ang timing marks, hindi na bibilangin ang balota mo. Hindi na siya babasahin ng makina. Next is the QR code. The QR code or the UV security. Kailangan din itong hindi masira kasi hindi rin babasahin ng makina kapag nasira ito. The NPO security, itong box na naka-red, meron diyang yung makina lang ang nakakabasa. Ibig sabihin nun, ang nasa loob niyan, that ballot is intended for that precinct. Ito yung clustered precinct number natin. Next. And then we also have this box. Dito pipirma si chairman to prove na galing talaga sa kanya yung balota. And then the name of the elections 2022, the name of the polling place. This is example is Abilan, Buenavista, Agusan del Norte. Ito yung mga kandidato. Tapos, ito yung instructions sa voters kung anong gagawin mo sa balota mo. Next is, okay, ito yung test ballot natin sa roadshow. Kung titingnan nyo yung mga pangalan dyan na ginagamit. What if first try mo na misread yung ballot mo? Ano bang gagawin? Okay. Later ko pa pala ma-present yan. Lahat ng sinabi ko na process of protocol sa polling place or sa voting center na kailangan sundin, kapag in any way hindi mo sinunod o hindi sinunod ng ating registered voter, that will be considered as an election offense. Kapag napatunayan na you violated the protocols or the procedure as laid down in the Omnibus Election Code and pertinent COMELEC resolutions, that will be, the offense will be punishable by imprisonment of not less than 6 years. So, meron tayong mga instances na ma-reject ang balota mo. As I've mentioned earlier, na misread yung ballot mo. O kaya, for whatever reason, nag-refeed ka ng ballot, hindi na yan babasahin ulit once nabasa na isang beses. So hindi pwedeng more than once ma-record yung vote ng isang tao. Meron ding instances na for whatever reason, yung ballot na nakuha niya is not intended for that precinct. Maybe doon sa packing, nagkaroon ng problema, may nasamang iba. The voter may ask for another ballot doon sa chairman. Hindi niya kasalanan yun. But as I've said, what if merong na misread? So ito yung first instance, ito yung face ng ballot natin, yung front page. Pwedeng pagpasok mo sa makina, ganyan. Kung na-misread, you are allowed to feed your ballot at the VCM 4 times in different orientations. When we speak of different orientations, pwede mong baligtarin. Ito ngayon, face pa rin niya, but doon ka na sa dulo nag-start. Hindi pa rin ayaw pa rin niya, so baligtarin mo. Doon ka na naman sa taas niya, pinasok mo yung usual niya na top. Tapos ayaw pa rin, doon ka na naman sa pang-apat. In any of those orientations, babasahin nyo ng makina. So, the VCM is generic, but the SD card is not. Meaning to say, yung what if there are situations in the prior elections wherein nasira yung VCM natin. I have a good news for everybody. Na final na ito, meron na tayong resolution mandating the putting up of provincial technical hub for SD cards. Now, in the past elections, first time ito, in the past elections, yung technical hub natin para sa mga nasirang SD cards is only regional. So lahat is pupunta sa regional office dito sa office namin para magpa-replace ng SD card. Okay lang if you are from Butuan City, but imagine that you are from Siargao Island, from Dinagat Island, o kaya dun sa far-flung municipality ng Agusan del Sur at ng Surigao del Sur. So anong gagawin doon? So pupunta ka pa ng Butuan, pagdating mo dito, mahaba na ang pila. So that will mean longer waiting time para matapos yung election in that particular precinct. Although, hindi ma-stop ang voting natin, pwedeng i-batch fed yun lahat after pag na-okay na yung SD card. So tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang voting, but with the watchers, i-collate yung lahat ng balota, mayroong envelope intended for them, and then ipapasok later on. So, it's a good thing na meron na tayong provincial technical hub. So lahat ng magkaroon ng problema sa Dinagat Islands, merong provincial hub doon mismo sa San Jose. And in Surigao del Norte, dalawa. We took into consideration that mahirap ang transportation in Siargao. Meron tayong provincial technical hub in Siargao, sitting in Tapa. And then in Surigao in the 2nd district of Surigao del Norte, we will have one sitting in Surigao City. We also have one in Tandag City, one in Butuan City, and one in Patinay, Agusan del Sur. Patinay Prosperidad, Agusan del Sur. However, for the VCMs na masisira, we only have 3 regional hubs, the whole of Mindanao. This will be sitting in Davao, Cagayan de Oro, and Zamboanga City. Now, bakit tatlo lang? Because the VCM is generic. It is not precinct specific. Anong music? Okay, thank you. The VCM is generic. Pwede tayong maghiram, matapos yung kabilang presinto, pwede nating hiramin, tanggalin nila yung SD card nila, ipapasok natin yung SD card natin, and then makapag-batch fed na tayo ng ballots. Kaya siya not necessarily na meron tayong technical hub for the VCMs. Okay, what are the rules to be observed during voting? You will vote in the order of your arrival. Bawal ang priority numbers kasi baka maaboso. The watchers will be sitting in the places reserved for them doon mismo sa loob ng polling place. Kailangan tahimik doon sa loob. Hindi pwedeng mag-uusap kayo at magkukopyahan. The voters are encouraged to bring your own kodigo. Magsulat na kayo ng listahan ninyo, dalhin nyo sa loob, pero hindi pwede yung sample ballot ni kandidato. Then meron tayong express lane for senior citizens, PWDs, and heavily pregnant women, including the escorted detainees. The IPs, meron silang express lane. What are prohibited doon mismo sa polling place? Kung mag-shade ka ng ballot mo na purposely hindi ka gagamit ng secrecy folder, lalo na para makita ng kung sino man ang nagbantay. And then, yung balota mo will be shaded by a different person without any valid reason na kailangan mo ng assistor. And then the use of capturing devices. The cell phones are not strictly prohibited inside or cameras inside the polling place, but it is strictly prohibited to use that in taking picture of your votes or your ballot. Kasi this will be deterrent sa vote buying. If we allow the taking of pictures in your ballots, duly voted, duly shaded, paglabas mo pwede yung magiging medium sa vote buying. So it will be an election offense kapag ginawa mo. Okay. I mentioned earlier assistors, and also presented dun sa EDCVL at PCVL namin, may naka-indicate na kailangan mo ng assistor. The general rule is that the assistors will be a relative or a person of his confidence belonging to the same household, kaya lang up to 3 times lang. Pero kung wala dun sa dalawa, walang pwedeng mag-assist sa'yo dun sa dalawa, any member of the electoral board can assist any voter unlimited. Pwede kang pumili sa kanilang tatlo kung sinong gusto mong mag-assist. Okay. Question. What if hindi tapos na ang registration period o kaya kahit registration period, alam mo kailangan mo ng assistor but hindi ka pumunta ng COMELEC. So may circumstances na wala doon hindi naka-indicate sa record mo na kailangan mo ng assistor. Yet pagpunta mo ng polling place, kailangan mo ng assistor, nawalan ka na ng kamay, naputulan ka na ng kamay, o kaya nagkaroon ng deterioration ang eyesight mo, kailangan mo ng assistor. And for whatever, nagiging senior citizen ka na hindi na steady ang ano mo sa pen. So kailangan mo ng assistor. You will just have to tell the members of the electoral board about your personal circumstance. And then you will still be allowed to vote, but this time around, kailangan mong pumili lang doon sa members ng electoral board. Hindi mo ma-enjoy yung personal choice mo sa assistor. Okay, manner of voting. I'm sure nakikita ninyo ito sa TV. Paano ba ang shading? Bawal ang X, bawal ang check, bawal ang partial shading. 25% or less, hindi siya babasahin ng makina. Equivalent yun sa walang boto. Kailangan fully shaded, but the question is, what if nag-smudge, lumabas dun sa circle yung shading mo? Walang problema, lalo na dun sa mga hindi na steady yung handling natin sa pen. Walang problema na mag-smudge siya, lumabas siya sa circle, so long as hindi siya aabot sa circle sa kabila. Kasi the danger will be if single post yung bobotohan mo, like presidente, doon ka sa candidate number 1, kaya lang nag-smudge, napunta ka doon sa 2. So ang ibig sabihin nun, nagiging 2 ang binotohan ang boto mo. Since 2 na siya, that will be considered as overvoting. Walang mabibilang kahit isa. Yun ang implication doon. So long as hindi aabot sa kapitbahay na bilog. And then, ito yung steps of voting. Ipapakita ito mamaya, but i-run through ko lang. Pagpasok mo doon sa voting center, kung wala ka pang number ng pangalan mo doon sa PCVL, lalapit ka sa Voters Assistance Desk, titingnan, kukunin ang pangalan mo, precinct number, and sequence number. Tapos kapag meron ka na yan, pupunta ka sa polling place mo, ipapakita mo yan kay chairman. Once ma-verify ang identity mo, papipirmahin ka ni chairman doon sa EDCVL, bibigyan ka ng balota, and then you will be able to vote using the secrecy folder. Pagkatapos mong bumoto, lalapit ka sa makina, ikaw mismo ngayon ang mag-feed ng balota mo doon sa VCM. Tapos lalabas ang resibo. We call this as VVPAT, o Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. Ito yung by law, kailangan magkaroon in every election. So i-check mo na based doon sa binoto mo, ito talaga yung lumabas. Unfortunately, hindi mo siya pwedeng bitbitin sa labas ng polling place kasi magiging medium ito ng vote buying. Pagkatapos mong makita yung VVPAT mo, yung resibo mo, itupi mo siya, ipasok doon sa receptacle malapit sa ating VCM. Then itong kamay mo, 4 fingernail mo will be inked. Ibig sabihin, nakaboto ka na. So that is the VVPAT. Kung may objection ka sa lumabas, baka for whatever reason may nakalimutan ka lang, pwede kang mag-object, isulat that will be pipirma ka sa likod ng VVPAT tapos i-attach yan sa minutes. But hanggang doon lang. Filing of frivolous objections will be considered as election offense kapag napatunayan. So kung magreklamo ka, make sure na sigurado ka dun sa reklamo mo. The uniformed personnel are not allowed inside the polling places and 50-meter radius. But kung kailangan, because for security reason, pwede silang pumasok sa width ng 50 but not beyond the 30. So dito lang sila sa gitna ng 50 at 30. However, yung deterrence natin na walang uniform personnel, yung prohibition na walang uniform personnel inside the voting center or 50-meter from a radius sa voting center is hindi nila kailangan ng order or reason kapag nagkaroon na talaga ng gulo. So when there is an actual violence, they can get inside the voting center or polling place anytime to exercise their duty as members of the law enforcement. But at the start, before mag-start yung voting natin, kapag nakikita na ng members ng electoral board na magkakaroon ng gulo, they can issue an order right away sa law enforcement natin na pumasok sa 50, but not near enough na ma-intimidate yung mga voters natin o kaya makapag-influence ng mga voters natin. Since we are in the pandemic period, lahat ng protocols imposed by the IATF will be strictly imposed and we will have to strictly follow. So, yun. Post-election period, after elections, magkakaroon tayo ng proclamation. Kami, hindi pa rin tapos ang trabaho namin. Magsasubmit ng reports. And then, lahat ito gagawin namin. And then, after the post-election period, balik na naman tayo sa pre-registration period kasi magre-rehistro na naman kami ulit. And I will be entertaining questions later on. The Secretariat will be showing a 2-minute videos on the voting process dun sa paggamit ng makina at pag-shade. Thank you and good afternoon again, everyone.
Okay, thank you po, Arid Samson, for the
Paano
discussion.
nga ba bumoto? Paano nga ba bumoto gamit ang vote counting machine o VCM? Pagkatapos mapatunayan ng Electoral Board ang iyong pagkakakilanlan, ay iaabot na sa iyo ang secrecy folder, marking pen, at ang iyong balota. Suriin mo ng maigi ang iyong balota. Siguraduhin na wala itong maraka, punit, o kahit na ano pa mang dumi. Fill upan ang iyong balota gamit ang marking pen. Itiman lamang ang bilog katapat ng iyong napiling kandidato sa bawat posisyon o party list. Tandaan, mahigpit na ipinagbabawal na kuhanan ng litrato ang iyong balota o di kaya ay mag-selfie sa voting area. Pagkatapos bumoto, ipasok ang balota sa vote counting machine o VCM. Lalagyan ng indelible ink ang iyong kanang hintuturo. Suriin ang iyong resibo at ilagay ito sa voter's receipt receptacle box. Ngayon, tapos ka ng bumoto. Para sa ligtas na pagboto, sundin lagi ang health and safety protocols.
That's all po, ma'am. Can you add, ma'am? Okay, once again, thank you po, Arid Samson of Comelec Caraga, for the very comprehensive discussion and for allowing us to know the basic and necessary information about the so-called vote counting machine. that we're going to use in the upcoming automated elections 2022. Now let's have the open forum. The floor is now open for your queries, clarifications, and other matters relative to the discussions. You may type them in the chat box, or you may also state your concerns or queries. Just simply use the raise hand button for you to be recognized. Again, the participants may now raise their queries. And may I request once again our discussants from COMELEC, Attorney Geraldine Samson, from Lente Philippines, Attorney Maris Aldesa, and from DILG, Engineer Donald Seronay for the open forum. Ma'ams and sir, may we request to open your camera for our participants. So from our participants, once again, good afternoon. Okay pa ta? Okay pa po tayo? Please type 1. If you're ready for the open forum, type 1 in the chat box. Okay po ba tayo? I would like to ask first, any query, clarification? You may type at in the chat box now, or you may raise your question by
Raising.
just press the raise hand button, no, for you to be recognized. If you would like to state your query. Anyone?
Good ni sir, ako nakuha. Mga sa
Slides. Sorry. There's some more, okay. Comments. Wala pa?
Sir, good afternoon po.
Yes, SK Chair Jovin.
Yes, sir. Clarification lang po, sir.
Go ahead po.
Ano po, sir, for example po, yung SK Federated namin, tumakbo ng ng Sangguniang Bayan, if ever siya ho yung mananalo or mananalo ho siya, pagpala rin po, automatic ho ba yung Vice President will be the one na magiging SK Federated, sir? Or depende ho yan, sir?
Okay, from our discussants who would like to answer the query. From the ILG, ERD. SK Chair, could you please repeat the question, please?
Ano po, for example po, yung SK Federated namin, tumakbo ng Sangguniang Bayan. And then, kung pagpalain, siya mananalo ho siya, automatic ho ba na yung Vice President uupo sa kanyang posisyon being the SK Federated po?
Yes, by operation of law, by law of succession, automatic yung Vice President yung mag-assume ng position ng SK Chair ng municipality ba yun?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
By operation of law, by law of succession.
So, sir, hindi ho siya, hindi ho ba, hindi po, for example, may mag-o-object na may tatakbo ho, ganon. Pwede ho ba yan, sir, o hindi po? Like, for example, kasi open na yung being the SK Federated na position. What if may mag-o-object, tapos sasabihin na magre-re-elect? Ganun, sir. Pwede ho ba yun, sir?
I think that's being governed by the bylaws of the Sangguniang Kabataan. Reflected doon ang manner of replacing kung sino yung magiging SK Chair for any eventuality that there is vacancy for the chairmanship in the municipality. So andyan yan sa guidelines sa bylaws ng Sangguniang Kabataan.
Okay po, thank you po.
Okay, thank you, SK Chair Jovin. And we have a query in the chat box from Ms. Donna Custodio. And this is addressed to COMELEC. Good afternoon, ma'am, sir. One of the political parties using the same ballot for shading, is that against with the rules of the COMELEC? Ared Samson, ma'am.
Thank you for that question. We actually received one complaint via 888 that a certain slate in Butuan City is doing that. We also received, although not a complaint, but a report that happened also in Surigao del Norte and Surigao del Sur. Now, what is all our candidates are allowed to use means not against the rules na for familiarity purposes na this is part of campaigning. Now, hindi siya prohibited under our rules dahil kinopya niya for familiarity purposes, kinopya niya yung sample ballot. In fact, nilabas namin yun early so that everybody will be able to peruse doon sa sample ballot natin, makita na ng mga botante natin, magiging familiar na sila. What is prohibited is yung balota mismo ang gamitin natin. We received an allegation, complaint na saying na yung official ballot na daw talaga ang ginamit na doon sa, saan ba yun? I think, basta barangay ng Butuan City. Dulag, barangay Dulag, Butuan City, na official ballot na daw talaga yung ginagamit doon sa Dulag, na a certain slate or party is disseminating or distributing the official ballot para botohan na. Kasi kopyang, except for the size ha, yung size kasi special yun, hindi pwedeng kopyahin yung size. Iba yung size ng official ballot natin, but yung itsura is the same. So, for the information of everybody, the official ballots of Caraga arrived in a Sipit port yesterday morning, and the pull out from the pier started at noontime, and then the trip directly yun ipa-receive sa mga provincial treasurer, and from there i-receive yun ng mga municipal treasurers natin. The official repository of the official ballots, our treasurers, hindi ang COMELEC, local COMELEC natin, that is check and balance. And then ilalabas lang yan siya, magkakaroon ng verification din sa ballots natin in the presence of the party watchers. Lahat ng party natin and even independent candidates, NGOs, pwedeng maglagay ng watcher doon sa opisina ng treasurer hanggang may distribute yun. So, we deny categorically na ang ginamit doon sa Dulag is yung official ballot kasi ang date ng allegation is April 23. Hindi pa po dumating, kahapon pa po dumating, kanina pa po na-distribute sa lahat ng municipal treasurers natin from the wing ban itself. But to answer the question, one of the mechanisms or technique na gamitin ng ating mga kandidato is kopyahin, except the size for familiarity purposes, and it is not prohibited by law.
Okay, thank you po, Red Samson. Thank you, ma'am. Okay po ba, Ms. Custodio? The follow-up question? Wala na. So another query po in the chat box from SK Barangay Consuelo. Suppose it's Consuelo. For DILG, sa do's and don't. Okay. Acknowledge po ni Ms. Custodio. Thank you po daw, Attorney Samson, for the response. Again, another query for DILG sa do's and don't. Clarification on use of government properties during election campaign. What government properties po? What particular po? SK Consortia. SK ng Barangay Consortia or Las Nieves. Can you elaborate po anong kuan? What particular po na concern sa do's and don'ts na i-clarify po? Chairs and speakers. Okay. Sige, we'll give the floor to our EID, Sir Donald.
One of the things that's not allowed under the dito sa election yung use of government properties, no? Because that's being used for official purposes only. And if that particular resources are being used by the office in aid of a particular candidate, that's not being allowed, no? So bawal yung paggamit ng government properties for the promotion of a particular candidate, no? Not only government properties but resources as well of the government, or whether that's a local government, a national government agency, or a government-owned and controlled corporation.
All right, thank you, ERD Donald. Okay po ba? SK ng Barangay Consortia, Las Nieves. Any follow-up query? If not, let's proceed. Okay na po daw. From other participants, any clarification or query you would like to raise? Wala na po. Or baka nahihiya lang. Don't worry, tayo-tayo lang dito, except the people outside. I would like to raise pa. Yung taga-Kuan, taga-Loreto, para yung marami no, in a group, baka may clarification po kayo. Yung Loreto, Agusan Sur. I think it's crystal clear pa yung discussion na if wala pong query or clarification. So hearing none, again, it's a crystal clear discussion from our very well-versed and intellectual discussants. So thank you very much to all our discussants, Attorney Geraldine Samson of COMELEC, Attorney Maris Aldesa of Lente Philippines, and our beloved Engineer Donald Seronay of the ILG for sharing your knowledge and valuable time to this endeavor. And to all our participants, most especially those who raised their concerns, thank you so much for your active engagement to our activity. We also thank the ILG 13RD, Lilibet Formacion, COMELEC 13 Red, or RED, Attorney Rimlani Tambuang, Lente Philippines Executive Director Rona Caritos, and to all of us in attendance, we hope that we will share the good things we gain. All of us, no, again. And to all of us in attendance, we hope that we will share the good things we gain from this activity. Let's go out and cast our votes on May 9, 2019. 2022, okay. May 9, 2022. Hapon naman ko daw. Humahapon pa na kasi. Patapos na yung araw. Think of your future in casting your vote, no? Think of your future and the future of your family when you cast your votes. Let us be responsible voters, so vote wisely and heartily. Tandaan, kabataan, pag-asa ka ng bayan. So before we end, may I request once again everyone to have a photo opportunity. No? Let's have first a photo opportunity. So those with camera, can you open your camera? Together with our discussants. Can you open your camera for our documentation? May I request all the participants. Open your camera, give your sweet and beautiful smiles. Your best smiles. Again, we request everyone, those with camera, open your camera for the documentation. Done. And on this.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile.
Okay. Next. Ano pa yung next slide? Ano pa yung next slide? We have the frames.
1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay.
Okay, that's it. And that concludes our activity. Thank you all and stay safe. Good afternoon.